Safety Doc Podcast with author, radio host, and nationally recognized safety expert, Dr. David Perrodin. Join us each week as we discuss the best and most bizarre practices in safety preparation and crisis response. Follow Dr. Perrodin on Twitter at SafetyPhD. And remember, the truth will keep you safe.
Hey everybody, it is your good friend Dr. David Perrodin from down here in a chilly North Star recording studio. It's a 58-degree brisk temperature right now. We are under an ice storm warning for tomorrow. They already canceled schools around here, so this is crazy. We'll see how things go. I live at the top of a hill, but I have all the supplies I need, and I can stay here as long as I need to, but there's no way I am taking out either vehicle and just down the hill tomorrow, if that's the way it's going to be. So tonight we have Josh the Locksmith on, and we're going to be talking about a variety of questions that have to do with security, and then also the locksmiths and the changes. We're going from the traditional key lock, to the digital system. So I noticed that when I was out getting my nomination papers for the political position I'm running for, Vote for Doc, April 5th. I'd go up to people's doors and then there'd be the ring cam and all the electronic stuff. And I'm like, holy smokes, this is kind of fancy. So yeah, this is awesome. Please share your questions. And I am going to bring Josh into the chat.
Hey,
Josh, welcome, buddy.
how you doing?
I am doing well. So thank you for agreeing to be on the show. And let's start out. Tell people about yourself. If they want to, learn about Josh the Locksmith, how would they go about doing that?
Well, I've been on my own now for about 5 years as a business owner, and I think that's probably how I identify more so than a locksmith, a small business owner more than anything.
Okay, small. And what part of the country are you in?
Okay, I'm in Minnesota and I work mostly in the metro, so I'm out of St. Paul.
Okay, St. Paul. So you're right in line for some of this terrific weather too. So we'll see if it comes through your area or not. So, let's start out. First of all, locksmith. What does a locksmith do? What's the range of that job?
Well, when you guys make mistakes or break up with your boyfriends or girlfriends, we kind of just come clean up. But we do car keys, we do unlocks, and commercial security hardware, that sort of stuff. Anything with a doorknob or a push paddle, or even some guys go into maybe the security system type end of it, the electronic type end of it. But yeah, just what you would expect mostly. But I think people have maybe lost touch with what we can still do, since the industry, like all others, has gotten a little bit mechanized, I suppose. So for locksmiths, for example, your doorknobs are disposable now, where 100 years ago you just had one that would last you 100 years.
Right. Right. Okay, so that's a good point. So I watch a lot of shows where they're exploring, like homes from the 1850s, places that are abandoned. Be like, oh, and here's like, a perfectly good, door handle set and stuff like that, that's still in place. So you said things are changing, and so what you can do, what your capabilities are. So maybe in the last couple of years, what are you finding? People are calling you and say, hey, Josh, I need you to help me out with this. And you're like, okay, that's going to be an issue because it's different now. So what might that be?
I think there's a lot of sticker shock with car keys. I think a lot of people are riding
Sure.
around with one car key and they don't know that it might be a $400 mistake if they lose it, if you're driving a BMW or something. So I think people are behind the curve on their automotive security and what that is. And I don't know, there's just the biggest thing, the only thing that ever surprises people for me is sticker shock with car keys.
So I get where you're going on this because, I've got, obviously a lot of, modern car keys, or, the car fob type things and whatever. So I actually had to change out the cylinder on my 88 LeBaron because it froze up. So I had a different key for the trunk versus both of the doors and so it's crazy, like 3 keys just to get in the car. But
Yeah, that's about as much as you can have for a car is three
that was
different keys.
that was crazy. So why does it cost so much? Is it because of the chip, or is it something proprietary to
I
GM or Toyota, or what's
Yes. So, well, to start, so one thing that's changed about automotive now is there's a little transponder in your key, and a lot of people don't know that that's hiding in there, embedded in the plastic, and that makes it so that whoever's trying to steal your car either requires you to leave it running, or they have to have a computer to maybe program that in, and maybe a passcode that they have to buy from somewhere, something like that. It adds another layer of security to it, and I don't know whose idea it was, but I think it's great. I think cars are really
okay?
hard to steal now. Actually, if you really take it yourself, not the key was left in the ignition for you. They're kind of hard to steal now unless you have a tow truck.
So in my area, I've seen on the news that some people have been going around and I don't know, they have some device which mocks I don't know if it's that the car is sending out a message to the key. So like, let's say I park my car in my driveway and right inside my house, my key is hanging and they're able to pick up the signal and do that. Or is that a no? Or is it,
Okay, well, yeah, I would say if you were that smart, you would maybe be doing a white collar crime rather
right?
than blue collar crime. But I think it's kind of interesting the what the so that's it's not a thing that's not a thing that I know of. I've never heard of that. I don't know.
Okay.
I think that criminals are way more. It's all about brute force, from what I've seen. I have seen one really ingenious break-in that I'll tell you about, a burglary that I'll tell you about, a little mini mastermind story sometime in
Okay.
tonight.
Yeah.
But
Oh, sounds good. And we have so here's how the show is setting up. So yeah, thanks Toy Town, Andrew, CNT Design, Arms. Hey, caught your show the other day, buddy. Solitude and Zippy. So we're going to be talking about what a locksmith does. We already started into that. Josh is going to explain home and property security 101 to us. Also, number 3, what information is helpful to a locksmith? So you're calling and saying, hey, I can't get into my car, I can't get in my house. What is the information you need to be gathering and sharing with Josh, right? Do you need to take a picture of the lock, or um, about how about your location, like your identity, things like this, so you can think ahead of this. So the next time you're like, hey, I can't find my keys, and it's like $400 probably to get a key made up. What do I need to be telling Josh? We're going to talk about pitfalls of hiring a locksmith, how to avoid scams. What are some things that you can try yourself? So you're like, okay, maybe this will work to get you in. All stuff legal, right? Not trying to take a brick through your window or anything like that. What are tricks of the trade? And tell us about some of the bad calls. So Josh is going to, share. Well, here's a time that was really crazy. Like I showed up and it was in the middle of whatever was going on, right? And what are some things that people should be aware of as they transition from traditional keys, like my 88 LeBaron, 3 keys to get into it, to a digital system? And we see that in homes right now. I have a friend in Alberta. His home is being assembled with all digital locks. He can control everything from his phone and stuff like that. But what happens if that gets hacked, or if that fails? So those will be things that we'll be hitting on. And then anything in the chat too that you have that you want to come forward. So, and here's probably our first, we have a couple of questions to come off of what does a locksmith do? And let's branch into this one right now. This is from Andrew to you, Josh. What was the most expensive stuff, Josh? All right. If you want to get into that one to kind of lead us off on a mystery thing, like maybe
I
what's the most
I
expensive stuff when you,
I don't look. I don't do a lot of safes,
okay.
but I've butchered a few, and I don't look in them. If I do open them for people, I don't look in them. I
Oh
don't
my
know.
goodness.
Yeah, if
Okay.
I
So let's like,
unlock it for you, I wouldn't look in it. I would unlock it and I would go
okay.
without like. So who knows what people have in there? If it's something
Well, right.
embarrassing, I would never want to crack it open and something falls out. And, oh
Yeah.
God.
Oh
Or
my
something
goodness.
that I shouldn't see. That's like the ultimate fear. You see something you shouldn't, and you don't walk out.
Reminds me of the movie, The Black Knight Rises, right? With the Joker and the bank heist theme at the start. So, Andrew, you sound like you want to explore this this criminal side of society a little bit more. So, whoa. So I think this is a great question, though. This is from Jim McIntosh. Is it a good paying trade? So if you go into locksmith, is this something, full time? If it's something you're doing, can you do this also part time? Or
Yeah,
yeah,
I like the question because I'm kind of feeling that out yet. So if you work for yourself, it's just like anything else. It pays like you're a self-employed person. It depends how you run your business. If you work for somebody else, I don't think it pays that good. It didn't pay good for me working for somebody else. And then it depends on when you're working for yourself, so you're getting the better pay, what area of the industry are you in? And then if the more you're interfacing with the public or on like a consumer level, like one-to-one for car keys or one-to-one for unlock, it's not great money. I don't think, but it gets to be good money when you get into the heavier hardware. The commercial end of the industry, I think, is better money. So an exit device on, say, a hospital door, if it's an electric hardwired in, automatic door closer, just the door closer might be multiple thousands of dollars. So there is some parts of the
wow.
industry that are good money. The commercial end is good money. The rest of it's, I'd say, put it with the rest of the trades, just right there with what a plumber makes, or this is a trade.
So how long have you been a locksmith?
Mm. 10 years and then 5 on my own.
Okay. So what got you into it? Like, what
I
was?
randomly, I actually am a college dropout, and then I was working at a bar, and I knew I needed to do something different than just work at a bar. So I was actually turned out to be moonlighting at the bar in the end, and then doing a old school apprenticeship during the day. And I worked for free for like 6 months, if I remember right. Maybe it was 5 months, and then at night I would work at the bar, and that's how I learned. So, and then I worked for that business for about 5 years.
So if you want to become a locksmith, you need to do an apprenticeship, or how do you become a certified
Okay,
locksmith?
so that goes to state by state deal. So for locksmiths in, I don't know, maybe in New York you need to have a license, or California, I'm sure you have to have a license to be anything, right?
Sure.
So probably in California you have to have a license and you have to have a college degree to get that license. Where I'm at in Minnesota, there's nothing. There's no it's and that is why since there's no certification for it, that kind of opens the door for the industry to be corrupted a little bit. So that'll be interesting to see. I can tell you how my industry in my state being a non-certified thing, I can tell you a little bit about the bad side of that.
Okay. Yeah. Let's do that. Let's branch into that of
Okay,
saying because it's
so
not certified. Yeah.
that's two questions at once, because you were going to ask me about locksmith scams, and there's kind of just one, but it's a big one, and anybody can bump into it, and you wouldn't have to be dumb to bump into it. This is a scam that anybody could fall into. Just basically, the companies that I'm referring to are operate under dozens of names nationwide, and I'm guessing in more countries than just the states. But us good locksmiths call them 24/7 guys, because that's just all their ads are. You'll find 24/7 somewhere in it. We call them 24/7 locksmiths. So what they do is they'll come and they'll show up for a $15 service call, and when your grandma gets let into her house, they're not just gonna pick the lock nicely. They're gonna drill the deadbolt, and then maybe that wasn't even locked. And then they drill the knob, and then they're charging her 3, 4 times what it might cost, and it's bad. They'll price gouge really hard, because the scam is to get you there and then not agree on a price, and then maybe even intimidate to kind of crank that price way, 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 way up. And now grandma's writing a check for $800 because she's locked out of her house and need a new doorknob. And that they local news stations every once in a while,
Okay.
if your city, whatever your city is, your city locksmith scam, look it up. There's a good chance that a big city bayou every few years the news does something on them. But the red flag is the low price service call, the 15 or $20. So the trick avoiding the scam is, if it's a pretty standard thing like an unlock or a key make, or
Okay.
something that you feel in your head is pretty simple, then just try and get a set price, because we can give you a quote or a price for most things. So that's the trick to avoid the scam is you'll never know if you got the good company ahead of time unless maybe the service call is suspiciously low or they are really reluctant to give you a price ahead of time. And honestly, in my area, the reason I wanted to bring it up was half the numbers on Google right now are scams because these are churn and burn companies. I don't even know how they get them on Google My Business so easily, but they make dozens of fake companies per city, and there's always old ones getting deleted and new ones getting added, and it's all one guy who's got this whole thing. He's really smart. I give
Wow.
him credit for it.
I had no idea that was going on. I had no idea.
And it's
Here,
not new. It's like 15
okay.
years now it's been happening. Yeah, our in my state, like the attorney general even tried to do something about it a few years ago. And I know that because we had it on like a placard, like the newspaper article in the shop I worked at, to try and tell the customers what was happening. But it's still happening and they're stronger than ever. So
So if I get, so I need to call Locksmith, right? I'm locked out of my house. What can I do to lessen my chances of being scammed? So
yeah,
yeah,
be
I'm
patient
really,
and keep your head about you, I suppose, because like today, for example, I was working out in Wisconsin, way out far from my regular area, and all those calls that I got,
yeah,
I couldn't take them because I was just too far away from the cities, and those people need to get into their house right then. And so we're all busy, and you keep calling the next guy. Now you're on your fourth contractor, and he says he can
gotcha.
come. Don't jump at it. Just take a second and get a price. I guess that's all you have to do. Literally, all you have to do pretty much is try and get a price at a time. That's it.
Do you
It's
think
easy.
would it make sense to? So if they're not willing to give a price, if you're like, hey, like I can take a picture of the lock. I mean, so you're not sharing,
Yeah. These
identifying
aren't
information.
like it's not a scam where they're gonna like really lure you in. They're not gonna try that hard. So if you just press a little bit with the lady that you get on the phone, investigate a little bit, you're gonna be fine.
So
You'll be able to pick them up. Oh, here's the other big thing. They have call centers, and most locksmith companies are small, so they're like family businesses and stuff. If you get a call center, that'd be another kind of red flag. Or if it's a 1-800, albeit there's a few big nationwide franchises, but for the most part, other than maybe two or three nationwide franchises, if it's a 1-800 number or something, that's probably bad.
wow, I just dialed 1-800 Jim McIntosh. He's like, I'll be there in 8 minutes, $5. I'm like, whoa, that seems low and kind of fast. Like you shouldn't be that close to my house right now. Jim Mac, who's in the chat, by the way, just kind of busting his chops. But so what would be a red flag price if someone is saying, I'll yeah, the service.
$15 service call, $20 service
Okay.
call. Yeah,
So
because I was when I called Bonfi a few weeks ago, it's $90. $90 for the service call. Mine's 75. So they try and tease you with the service call rate, and that's been their main trick for a decade now. So look out for that.
so reasonably something like $75 as a set rate, or will they say it'll be this much, and it could be higher if it takes me more time or something like
Yeah,
that. But it
so I'm a mobile service, so everything comes with a service call to basically get me to your door, kind of. Unless it's a car unlocked, and that's kind of like just the service call. But what I mean by service call is just like any other contractor that does that, just the price to come out. And well, I think most of us start around $100, but those 15, $20 ones are the only ones that are different, and they're the only ones that are scams. So that kind of is what makes them so easy to pick out.
okay. Wow. Wow. Um, let's go into this is great. Let's go into our second question. So we were talking about what does locksmith do? We talked about the kind of popular scam that's out there. Get a quote. So tell us about home and property security 101. And I want to I brought in the property security because I have relatives who have cabins up north, right? Like a hunting cabin or someplace they go in summer when the weather's nice, and then they lock it up and they're not back there, for a few months. So, what are some of the things we need to think about for home
Yeah.
security, and then maybe property security that we're not going to be at,
Yeah.
um, you
Yep.
know, that location for. So what are some things that make us less likely to be targets, that we fortify better, or
So
what are some obvious stupid things people do?
yeah, there's not. I got a lot of simple answers for simple questions. So deadbolt is that my number one is the first thing that comes into my mind when you ask me what should I do for security. You'd be surprised how many people just have a knob or a lever on their house. And I was, excuse me, I was told when I was learning, excuse me, yeah, the knob is to kind of just keep the door from blowing open, even if it's locked. So deadbolt, if you have a door without an additional second lock above your lever, that's bad. A lot of people do. You have to have a deadbolt put on it because if you knew all that was holding your door shut, you'd want the deadbolt, and the deadbolt has to be installed, right? So it sounds simple, and it almost sounds dumb to say, but you you want a deadbolt, and you should know you can have those holes drilled in and added in. So I can add in a hole above your lever or your knob, and I can put a deadbolt in above that. And then if you only had one hole in your door when you bought it, now you got two, and the second one's full of deadbolt. In any case, deadbolt's my big answer. Some people just don't have one,
Okay.
and you kind of have to.
So is that something you would install if someone called you and said, hey, like I've got a simple, you know, turnkey lock and I want a deadbolt. Can you put one of those in for me?
Yeah, you can have what I guess my point was if you have a door that only just has that handle, just please know that a locksmith can come and cut a second hole in that door and add you the lock that you need to really keep it shut. So a knob is typically screwed into or the latch only grips onto essentially the trim of the door when it's just the lever. So if I was to kick your door in, I'd be on the inside of the building, I'd be kicking the trim off. If I kicked your door in, it would hit the trim, which is just that decorative wood that covers the frame.
Right.
That's kind of all that is holding your lever. The only bit of latch that's holding your door shut is gripping into that trim. So uh, the other big tip is when you do get your deadbolt installed, or if you already do, you have to make sure that you have screws connecting that mechanically to the frame of the door. So if everybody checks their deadbolt at some point this week, just take one of the screws out of the door jamb. You know the hole in your door
Yes.
jamb?
Yep.
If you take one of those screws out of there that holds that metal strike plate in, look how long it is. If it's a short little guy, then replace it with a 3-inch screw that goes into the door frame. So that's my big 101 tip is if you don't have a deadbolt, get it. And if you do have a deadbolt, check that the screws that hold the strike plate to the door jamb are 3-inch screws that are mechanically connected to the door frame rather than simply the door jamb or the trim. So
Got it.
that's it.
So I did that on our house. Well, we have deadbolts on the doors, so that's a plus. And then usually the package includes like 3/4 inch screw or something like that. So took it out and put in two 3-inch contractor screws that went into the frame,
Yep.
to the stud coming down. So
And if you can remember to drill pilot holes, and if you know what those are,
yep.
please do that to even execute better. But what else for break-ins? And you had talked about cabins. So I was just saying for your house, just check out your deadbolt is there, and then it has 3-inch screws holding the strike plate on. So that's the one thing. The second thing you mentioned rural properties and what to do about those. So I don't secure a lot of rural properties, but I do a lot of stuff in the cities as far as houses, or I don't do a lot of cabins, is what I mean to say. And I would think that those would be especially tricky because, as to what I know about burglaries, is a rural area or not having somebody watch you break into a place is obviously what you want, right? So yeah, a cabin's tough because they're just going to come through the windows. Crooks don't like breaking windows in the city to a rate of it's something like 1 to 4. So like 75% of break-ins are forced through the door. And you
Wow.
think, wouldn't it be easy to break in through the window because you could just throw a rock through it? But they don't like to do it. That's off FBI statistics from a few years ago. I remember looking at it. And I was surprised that like a quarter of break-ins are in through the window, and I think a lot of those window break-ins are your rural properties. I think people think it's loud or violent. I don't break a lot of glass, but I don't really know how violent or loud it is, but for your rural property, my recommendation would be pay extra attention to the windows, because I feel like in a rural setting they're extra likely to get hit. And then obviously you still need the deadbolt that I had mentioned. I know it might sound dumb, but a lot of people don't. And I could kick you into your door if you don't have a deadbolt, and I'm pretty weak for a man. So get that done.
Got it. So getting the deadbolt, and let's go. How about like someone has their bike. Okay, I'm going to say me. I bike, right? So, um, what's a good way to secure, like a bicycle, or your kid's bicycle or
I
something like
think
that.
I think the people that secure their stuff at all stand up above the crowd. So I think if you're securing your stuff at all, you're
Okay.
already doing good. I will say for bike locks, when I worked at the shop, people would bring them in sometimes, and I'd say the nicest ones that I never worked on, because they were just kind of too intricate and fancy, and they were essentially totaled the minute that they were broke, because on top of being nice, they were also affordable. Maybe being a I don't have you heard of the kryptonite locks?
Yes. Yeah.
Those ones are nice. Yeah.
Okay.
I've thought that those ones were nice. And then I would recommend the ones that aren't necessarily a chain. Those U locks they'd look like they'd take a bigger tool to cut than a chain.
Okay.
I'd say whatever's harder to cut, because
So
they're gonna
something
cut it.
that's not a chain. Okay. Is there any like strategy to like disguise your stuff, or like
Yeah,
to
for sure there is. So for my house, I'm a proud I've never been broken into at my house yet, and mine is it if you drive by it, it's like the well-lit compound. Like if you drive by my house, the lights turn on and it's bright. And I like that because I have my whole business in my van, and if anybody goes and breaks in, I could be put out of work for a couple weeks, depending on what tools go missing. So I am always worried somebody's coming for my stuff, and I like lights. I like sirens. If you have a loud siren and a loud light, uh, I wish it wasn't also obvious, but there's not much else to it. So
right?
get yourself a light and get yourself a siren, and look poor. It's you.
Right.
That sounds like a joke, but it's really not. If you don't have flashy stuff all over, you want to be you don't want to be the shiniest thing to take, is all.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So when you say lights, you're saying like motion sensor
I
lights,
have
right?
motion sensor lights. I love them. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And
mine's set so like I have a constant on, and then it'll power up brighter with
oh, okay.
motion. So I like that I got lucky to have that.
When I had our house remodeled, exterior, about 10 years ago, I ordered these big 3 light complexes. Well, I mean, it has 3 floodlights in each one. So, and they're up at different parts of my house and at the peak of my garage. So when that gets triggered, like the entire like area out to the road gets lit up, and it's pretty amazing because like on Halloween I live in town, and when I throw that on, like it kind of lights up the neighborhood and stuff like
Yeah.
that. But for us, I wanted it for security.
Yeah.
I knew that I had that opportunity, and I went specifically and ordered that. Um, so where do you fall on, in addition to lights and sirens, of having cameras? Do you think like if a potential intruder sees a camera, right, that they're less likely to? Do you
Yeah,
want to
for
have the
sure.
camera
I
visible?
think cameras are a visual deterrent, but I don't rely on them to offer justice. I think maybe now that's changing, that cameras are getting better and better, and maybe you can get a clear face shot, or you can get a license plate from your garage to the street. Maybe cameras are getting better and they're becoming like realistically a helpful tool, but other than being a visual deterrent, I don't see cameras saving the day and bringing justice home. Unless you're lucky enough to get a real clear shot of a license plate or a face or something. But I love cameras for security. I don't sell them, but any visual deterrent is good. Yeah, camera is good just to
Okay.
scare
So
people.
so recapping, and I've seen this. Like I'll be out biking and stuff, and they'll be at the end of a property, and there'll be a sign like, there are cameras all the way down this road. So if the closer you get to the house, like the more time we have to prepare. I'm like, okay, won't drive down this road, but so cameras don't put anything flashy out. Lights to turn on. Sirens and right because I think what you're saying is like you want to be more of a risky or bothersome target than somebody else. I mean, which is kind
Yeah.
of what's happening, right? I mean, is if someone is considering, oh, I can break in here, um, and then how about like people that put their cars like out on the road or out in the driveway? Like, what is the best advice to not get up in the morning and find your window smashed out?
Yeah.
And
It so if you go to 10 of your friends' houses, you'll walk inside without thinking that door looks like a pain to get through, and this next one looks easy to get through. But I look at it, and my first thing that I think of is, oh, I hope they don't call me to unlock their house. That looks that looks tough.
okay,
So it doesn't take much to be tougher than your neighbor. So like I said, I know that stuff sounds so dumb and simply like I didn't need the locksmith on here to tell me I needed a deadbolt. Thank you. But it really does make a difference to people that know what they're looking for. If you do a couple little extra things to show that you care about your home security, and that doesn't have to be your locks, that can be any of what we had just talked about. But it does make a big difference to me as somebody that unlocks houses. If you have an updated lock set, it might actually be harder to pick. It might actually be harder to get through than something that maybe is a little bit more outdated. So any little effort to put a little more security into your entrances it's noticed by people who care about it.
okay.
It might look the same to you, but it is important and it's easy to do.
So Josh, this was I took this picture 2 weeks ago. I'm going to bring it up. This is somebody in my neighborhood, and so let me share it here. So all right. So this is someone in my neighborhood. So left door is wide open. It's like 15 degrees outside, and
Yeah.
and it was this way and so there's snow, right? So I can see that no one has driven in their driveway. Their door is wide open. This is not an abandoned house. This is
I'll tell you what happened. I know what happened right now by looking at it.
okay.
So somebody left the house in a hurry. They shut the door behind them. They heard the door slam and they kept walking straight to the driveway to their car. Little did they know the door didn't latch behind them. And as they pulled away for the day, they left not knowing that latch didn't really click into the hole in the door jamb. And the wind took her open. That's my guess.
It is
But
exactly what happened.
as the seasons change, those the frame around that door, that wood frame, I don't know if it's the humidity or the temperature or
Yeah.
both, but as that fluctuates, that messes with people. That actually happened to me this winter. I was doing that exact same thing when I didn't lock my deadbolt, which I tell you to do.
Okay. So what you said is right on. I had been watching it, and then one of my neighbors finally went over and was just kind of yelling and stuff, and then he closed it. And then the next day, I was talking to the neighbor, and he's like, "Yeah, it happened like twice now. I thought it was closed, but it's not." I'm like,
Yeah, so tell me
"Okay."
needs to file out his strike. That hole in the strike plate just needs to be a little wider, one way or the other. He'll hit it with a file, and his sorrows will be over.
Yeah. So his furnace was probably very angry because
Yeah.
it was. I mean, I'm like, "Oh, this is crazy."
Hey, that's another thing I could maybe mention. If you have a drafty door, that metal plate that your locks bite into when the door shuts, the metal plates that stay inside of the door jamb, um, that those are what you can move in and out to take that draft away. So if you have the drafty door, you could just move that little plate in tighter or whatnot to get rid of that draft.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's what it is. So if you want your door to shut a little tighter, that latch that your the
Okay.
latch for your knob, just
Wh-
I'm not explaining it, am I?
No, you got it. No, I got it. And here's another question I have for you. Do you think a turn knob is better or worse than like a pull down lever?
So
Because
for
yeah,
handicap, for ADA stuff for commercial properties, if you have the choice between a knob and a lever, normally you may not in a commercial property. The levers are better for handicap access. Um, yeah, but other
okay,
than that, it don't matter.
okay. So I give you a call. Um, I'm locked out of my. Let's. Do you get more house or car calls?
Car.
Okay, car. So I'm locked out of my car. I'm calling you. What information that I give you is most helpful to you, whether it be like my location or the type of car, or you have all of your equipment with you, but how can I help you? So somebody listening, this happens to Robert Ribbit Harrison, who did the Cannonball Run in Connecticut 3 years ago. And he's like, the car is running 130 proof octane. I got to get back in it. But what should I tell you to help you?
I just like a solid location. I don't care if it's your GPS coordinates or the address, but there is a generation past that likes to give directions based off landmarks and turns,
Right.
and I don't operate well with those directions. So just give me your address and help me find it is all. That's all.
So does anybody call and say like, okay, like my GPS is in my car. So what am I? Is there something that like on Google Maps, like on their phone that they go to, and they're like, I'm not sure where I am
Yeah,
exactly.
you
Like
could
I'm
drop a pin. Drop me a pin or something. Yeah. No, I don't. It's all I ask people really over the phone is I might kind of test them to see if I think it might be kind of shady. I might ask a few test questions to maybe feel that out, but no, I really just need to know where people are, and then if they have a problem, I like to find out what the problem is to try and give them a quote ahead of time because I don't like to have a disagreement on what the price is after the fact.
okay,
But maybe just your location and a good description of your problem if you would like an accurate quote.
got it. Um, Okay. So what are some things somebody can try themselves? So I know that's like a bad business model because you're like, here, I'll talk you through
No,
a
it's
couple
not.
things you can try. And they're like, whoa, okay, it opened, great. And then the phone hangs up. But what are maybe some things that as people panic and you're like, okay, could you try this? Like maybe
Yeah,
one or two things.
here's a funny one. What is it? I've had people call because if you can't get your key out of the ignition, the battery might be dead, or if it won't start and it's not in park or something, or the neutral safety switch failed, or I think there's more dumb mistakes with automotive. Maybe what's another one with automotive? If the steering wheel's locked and the key won't turn in the ignition, it can be you just have to kind of crank the steering wheel to let some, relieve some pressure off that lock inside there. So a lock steering wheel can mess with people a lot. You
Hey,
try that. Ice locks. If your lock's iced up and the key won't turn, that's a super easy one to fix. Brake cleaner, anything violent, anything corrosive is great for kind of de-icing.
okay.
Um,
Like WD-40 maybe or not?
I go harder than that. I like brake cleaner or carb cleaner, and
Okay.
you can if you have a sticky lock to really flush it out with something tough, and then you could lubricate it after with whatever you'd like. Sure.
So we have a question from Martin Kaminsky. So Martin is saying, ask Josh about sliding glass doors. The older ones used to be able to, lift up and off the latch even if it's locked. So yeah, I have sliding glass doors on my house, so I'm interested about this. Is there a trick with sliding glass doors or a different way you approach those?
That's a good question. There's one style of lock you can get for about $15, and that's a pin that goes when your sliding glass door is shut, the two pieces should kind of come and overlap, right?
Right, right.
Oh, there's a pin that goes right through the two of them, and that should keep it from lifting. So there's a lock that's a pin that holds door 1 and door 2 together by driving a pin straight through them, and I would assume that would stop you from being able to lift it enough. Uh,
Okay.
but that's the kind of stuff that really works, Martin. The lifting attacks and the kicking attacks and the forcing and the brute force is where you kind of have to start relying on your sirens and your lights and your cameras, because there's not a whole lot I can do if someone wants to force through a glass door in a way like that. There's just limits.
Yeah. Um, so let's talk about what are some tricks of the trade?
Uh, what are some tricks of the trade? The credit card trick to get through. If you just have the knob or the lever, if you've seen people use a credit card to jimmy the latch,
Right.
that works a lot of times. It really does. But don't use your credit card or your ID, because you'll ruin it. Use the biggest piece of plastic you can find. I use ones that are kind of specially made for it, but that is, you don't need that. Use a piece of, like, a 4x6 piece of plastic, a thin one, like a top of a 5-gallon bucket or something. I don't know, maybe even thinner than that. But yeah, use that. Find a nice big flat piece of plastic. That should help you break into most of the stuff you want to get into. I don't know. The credit card trick works good, and it works pretty often. So find a nice big piece of plastic and you have your first lock pick. What else? Opening cars. Most people are able to open their cars on their own, and they don't realize
Okay.
that there's always a mechanical egress, right? So if your car is on fire, you're not, the manufacturer can't rely on you to find the electric switch, hit the electric switch, and then go and operate the door. They have to make it so you just, it's usually like a single motion egress out of a car. So when you're trying to get into your car, think about the simplest motion to open that door, what I recommend. So maybe don't aim for the little unlock button that you hit with your finger when you're sitting down.
Right.
Think about the broader movement. If you're trying to pop your own car open, the go for the handle. If you're gonna unlock a car, go for your door handle.
Okay.
A lot of times, I don't know. They're all different. I wish I could give you tips. Here's one: go on Amazon, everybody tonight, and get a air wedge and a big one of the big stick tools to unlock your cars. I use those for 90% of cars, and then I'll throw in a Slim Jim, just because Slim Jims are even easier than that if it's the right car. But go on Amazon, get a air wedge, and then the long hook tool, or get a big long metal stick that comes with an air wedge, and you'll be able to do 90% of cars with that. I think you can get a nice set for $50, and if you use it once, it pays itself off. So
So how do you keep it so it's not in the car? So you're like, I've
you
got it, but it's in the car.
tape
I've
it to
got a
the
problem
top of the
here.
car. I mean, for your house. I mean, for
Oh,
your
for the
house. I
house?
think people should have them at their houses. A lot of car unlocks will happen at your house, and some of them won't. But
Yeah.
I think it's just a tool people should have that they don't. And lucky for me, they don't. But it's so cheap. It's $50
It's $50.
for
Okay.
get an air wedge and the long stick, a long
Air
metal stick. I don't know what they call it. It's just a metal stick, the long
air
reach
wedge.
tool, or yeah. I
So
think everybody should have that, at least a car unlock tool for their house.
I see Robert Ribbard Harrison who says I have that kit. So
Yeah.
Robert, if you can post the link to that for everybody else, that would be awesome. And yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah, you can get the tools. So, but I should caution, in my state, you have to be you have to be trying to do something illegal to have the tools be illegal. But in other states, it might not be the case. I think maybe just possessing unlock tools some places is bad. So I don't know about car unlocks. Car unlock tools might be different than lock picks, but I know some states you're not supposed to have lock picks. Like, it's illegal just to have them. Not in my state, but in other states it can be.
Okay. So yeah, so make sure, yeah, you're not, driving around or have like your own supply of lock picking stuff without yeah, I mean, it's interesting, right? Because you said in Minnesota, you to be a locksmith
There's
is
nothing.
there's not a license, right? There's or an ID card or anything for that, like a not a registry of saying I'm a member of the locksmiths. I've paid my dues, and
Yes. So we kind of regulate our own industry. So if somebody thought I was a bad person, the only way I would get shut down is if the businesses around me kind of told my wholesale distributor that, hey, don't sell to this guy. Which actually, when I started my own business, they tried to have the wholesale distributor not sell to me, and well, that didn't work out for them. They sell to me, but yeah, we kind of regulate ourselves a little bit, but no, there is really no regulation. The only regulation we have is amongst ourselves.
Okay. Wow. Wow. So I'm waiting if Robert or maybe Vanessa can put a link to some of the zip strips and what you were sharing. When I was able to get into my vehicle by using basically wire, right? I mean,
Yeah.
this is like 30 years ago, like a piece of I was out at the farm and a piece of fence wire, and I was able to loop it around my handle, I think, sneak it in through the door, and within 30 minutes get myself out. When I get into my vehicle and get myself out of the farm. But when I was in college, I mean, back then, right? I mean, it was just a simple turnkey, no deadbolt, no nothing. And we got locked out so many times that one of my roommates is like, well, here's what a rake is. And I didn't know what a rake is, but it's a tool, right? A basic locksmith tool. This is back in the 90s. And he's like, here, just put it in a couple times and the lock will probably open. And it did. Like, so if you ever get caught out, I'll put it up above here on the sill. So I was able to learn that. But yeah, so basic trick. So having these devices, and is there anything else of like how to get in? Or
I have really easy homework for people. So I guess to go back, make sure you have 3-inch screws holding your strike plate on for your deadbolt. Right? That was my 101 tip, is make sure your deadbolt strike plate has 3-inch screws. Then next, get yourself your car unlock tool off Amazon, your air wedge, and then that long reach tool. So maybe you have that around, and like I said, if you can pay $50 for it, roughly, it pays itself off in one use. I'm so surprised more people don't have those.
okay.
Um, what else is there? There's nothing, no good tip, nothing real easy off the top of my head. What most of my unlocks happen, or a lot of house unlocks happen with house sitters and stuff. So if you have a house sitter, maybe know that might be a thing. Throw a spare key out because they might lock themselves out. That happens a lot. Dog sitting and house sitting
Okay.
causes a lot of lockouts actually. So have a solution in place for not just for you to get back into your house, but maybe for somebody else when you're not there. Some people don't think about.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Knox case in homes.
So yeah, I'm not casing homes now. No, I'm not doing that. So I had that was the video was one of my neighbors, their house, and it was a faulty lock. I also had a situation where my neighbor's smoke alarm was going off for like an hour.
Yeah.
And not the same place, but it was in summer, and I'm looking at the house and the windows are open. I'm like, oh, there's no smoke. I used to be a firefighter, and I'm looking at the second floor. I'm like, oh, the smoke would be venting from there. So I'm like, what is causing that though? Like, what is going on? And finally, they all know it just stopped. But maybe I should have done more.
That
But I was
happened to
like,
me last
okay,
summer when my neighbors refinished their floor, and it was like the fumes from finishing the floor set the smoke alarms off, and nobody was home. It was a house they were flipping, and I was like, "What do I do? I kind of peeked in the windows a couple times to make sure nothing was on fire?" But yeah, that happened to me
okay.
not long ago.
Oh God,
Neighbor's
yeah.
house was going off.
I was thinking, yeah, I'm watching it, and I'm like, okay, I'll just like hang. I think I pull out my lawn chair, and I'm just kind of, just watching, and yeah, and I'm ready to call 911, or no one was over there, but everything was okay. But yeah, I had my garden hose ready to go. But oh God, um, so tell us about, and I'm sure there's been a number of these, but some of the craziest calls you've been on. And I want
Yeah.
to preface, like when you mention this to me, I'm thinking, I'm guessing it's maybe like domestic disputes or something where you show up and there's like multiple people there and they're like, unlock the door, don't unlock the door. Who is this guy? I don't know. Or what, or things like that. Or is it just like, it's like a haunted house and they're like, you go in there and you're like, oh my God, what's going on here? Or what are the craziest calls you've been on?
So with domestics, it's men never call me. Men either I don't know, they must swap their own locks or not worry about it, but with the domestics, it's always women wanting me to lock it up. That's kind of interesting now that I think about it. I just never have guys worried about women. That's our maybe the one little bit of privilege I'll recognize. So there's that. Women are the only one that call me for domestic stuff most of the time.
Okay.
And those are yeah, I don't like that. I do a lot of domestics. I do a lot of the bank owned stuff. I've had to kick people out or be there when the cops are kicking people out. So I learned that renting is tough. Renting is tough to get people out when they're not paying. I learned a little bit about that. It looks like it's hard to kick people out when they're not paying. Is what it looks like from my position. I don't know. I try and get in and get out, and I don't mess with people too much. I don't want to know the story. I don't want to know the
Right.
domestic. I don't want to know it. I just want to do my job and go.
So
Um,
what's been a situation where yeah, you got brought in and you're like, oh God, this is like way crazier
well,
than I thought.
sometimes people think I'm like the like I'm the sheriff. I'm not
Okay,
there to
right.
kick your tenant out. The sheriff comes and does that, and I'll follow behind. Uh, but were you asking me about what awkward? I just the only awkward stuff for me is when people tell me their story, and I'm just there to work, and no disrespect, but I just want to work and go.
Yeah. No, that makes sense because I can imagine people just as you said, as soon as you arrive, there's some position of right authority and you have the capability to
Yeah,
access the house and suddenly they're like, okay, you're kind of like,
yeah, and I
I
don't
don't have a
want the
badge on. I'm not a
authority. No,
sheriff.
yeah, no, it's steel keys would wear the brass parts out. So it has to be brass on brass. Brass keys for brass locks.
Okay, brass keys, brass locks. This is Jim
Otherwise, the
McIntosh.
steel would wear out the brass.
Got it.
Uh, Sorry, we were talking about crazy calls, or right?
Y- Yeah.
So I did a I broke into a drug house once. It was
Okay.
supposed to be foreclosed. And well, we went in there and it smelled like pot. We thought somebody was squatting in there and maybe they had just smoked. Well, we opened it up, and our job was just to make the key for the real estate guy. And it turned out that it was being squatted in, and they were cooking, weighing, packaging crack on the main floor, as well as that being what looked like kind of a daycare slash crack house. And then the top floor was they were growing weed. Um, and then the basement was maybe where people would just do drugs and sleep. It was disgusting. So I broke into a drug house once. That was kind of scary because all the pot plants were like almost ready for harvest. So you're standing in between somebody and their payday. Foreclosed houses scare the crap out of me. I always
Okay.
get bad vibes in them. They're creepy and they're squatters. I hate going into foreclosed houses. They always creep me out. It's like all joy is left the home. Every time you go to a foreclosed house, it's gross.
And in those cases, some of those places have been like beat up pretty bad, right? Like
Yeah,
people smashing the drywall and stuff like
yeah.
this. And so
It's
you're coming in there and
this
you're like,
Yeah, this job has made me not want to be a landlord ever, even
right.
though I feel like I might want to be, but this job has made that look really like a really tough gig to be a landlord. I just see a lot of disrespect on the rental
Yeah.
sides.
I've seen that too. I have a friend that's a landlord and said, yeah, if you go through a foreclosure, kicking somebody out, you know, concrete down the toilet and stuff like this. It's just, busted in drywall. And uh, so we have a question from New York Outcast. He's saying, what if I need a nice car rekeyed in the middle of the night in a shady neighborhood? Like,
Yeah.
what's your advice
Well, you're
there?
not gonna be able to afford that key, but uh so he's asking me if somebody's gonna steal it. I don't know. I've how do I avoid scams or how do I avoid stealing things for people? Really don't. I go with my gut. The time I used to when I first started, I used to ask for IDs more
Right.
often than I do now. And so I had got this guy's ID, and his squad pulls up in the driveway. I'm unlocking his house, and his address matched his ID.
Right.
Well, the neighbor lady knew he wasn't supposed to be there, but I didn't, and so she called the police because he was going through a domestic and he wanted his stuff out, and his wife
Okay.
had locked him out. So, boys, if you get into a domestic, your keys are gonna get changed. Just know that.
Right.
That
Right.
happens ASAP. But yeah, so that was when I pretty much just stopped asking people for their IDs then. I was like, this is stupid. Doesn't even matter if their address is supposed to be there because they could have ID that says that and they're not supposed to be in that property legally even though they have the ID. So that don't matter to me. And then the other side of that is what if you're out of town and you got your nice car stuck in the street, but your house sitter says it's going to get towed? I need to make you a car key now and you're out of state. And now I
Right.
got to deal with your house sitter. I don't know. People can make up all kinds. If someone wants to trick me, you probably can, but you know, I'll snitch on you if the cops ever ask me, just so you know. But no, you could trick a locksmith. There's not,
Okay.
there isn't a lot of,
It brings bad luck if you do.
yeah, you could trick me. Maybe I have been tricked before, but I
Wow.
don't think so.
CNT Designs is it creates things, with his plasma burners and stuff. I don't know if he'd be making locks or not, but it's interesting, Josh. You mentioned that because um, I didn't know until we talked like that. I thought there were probably several layers of authentication, right? You'd have to go through to prove, right? This is my house. I mean, right? Like I'm thinking if I got locked out, I'd be like, I probably wouldn't have my wallet. Like, I'd have to
Yeah.
describe stuff inside the house. Be like, once we get in there, if you turn around the corner, there'll be
Yeah.
this and
Life's just not that clean. You're gonna
okay,
get locked out of stuff that's not yours, and you're gonna have to get in. You're gonna have to get into a place that might not be yours, but it's locked. So life's not just clean where you're gonna have an ID for every place you're locked out of that has an address on it. So I've had to just try and learn to go with my gut and take risks, and it could come back on me, maybe.
is there some point when you're just like, okay, here's the deal. Like, the best way to get you in is either to what drill out this lock, or I mean, I guess what are the most extreme measures if you're like, okay, here's the deal. Like, we've got to do this. What, and then do you automatically replace a lock then? So someone's like, okay, great. Like you just drilled out my lock and now like you're driving away and I have no lock on my front door, or what I guess what is kind of these worst case scenarios people can run into, and then you're like, okay, here are your options. You can do nothing, or like I can bring out the drill and
Uh, well, it's for a house unlock. Yeah, the worst case scenario would be you replace it. But like I said, they're so cheap now; they're almost disposable to start. But if um if you're talking about a hospital or a school, those locks are much more expensive. I
yeah.
missed that question again. Were we talking about house unlocks? What's the worst thing that can happen? Is you call the scam people. It's the only bad thing that can happen.
I think if they were to say, okay, like we can't just, I guess, pick the lock, right? We're going to have to actually drill out the lock.
I do that all the
And
time. Yeah.
okay, so that's maybe like a common thing. So if someone's telling you, oh, we're going to have to smash a window, you'd be like, can't you just drill out the lock? Like, don't smash out the window.
Yeah, no, you should never probably break a window unless it's a Range Rover, then maybe. But
Okay. Right. Wow.
there's not a whole lot of bad things that can happen. My job is pretty simple. If you think you're getting scammed, you're probably getting scammed. It's easy. If you need me to come pick your lock, I'll come pick it. If I gotta drill it, I might drill it, but it's not a big deal. It's another $20 or something. Yeah, that residential stuff in the automotive, there's just not much to it. I want to have more for you, but there's just nothing there for residential and automotive. We covered it.
Is there something, I mean, like if I had access to my drill, like if you just drill down the center of a lock, is that going to drill out the core and you'd be able to open it? Is that how that typically works? Or
So how you drill a lock is you drill the shear line, and you just basically separate the pins from the rest of the lock. So usually you drill right above the key to drill a lock,
okay.
and there's if you count the grooves on your key, there's 5 or 6, and that's the
Yes.
number of pins to drill through. So you count those pins as you hit them, and you can feel your drill skip into them.
Okay. Yeah, thankfully I've never had to try to do that on my house, but okay. Jim McIntosh is saying lock de-icer with graphite for the win. So my question, is especially, tomorrow we have icing around here and things like that. But how do you lubricate a lock without gunking the lock up? I guess whether it's a door
Okay,
lock
I
or a
think
car lock.
graphite is the gunk of all gunks.
Okay,
So I wouldn't put
Jim.
that in there,
Okay,
Jim. But anything else, pretty much. I like I said, if you want to free a lockup, put the most kind of corrosive, nasty stuff in it to get the job done quick. Brake cleaner or carb cleaner to clean it out, and then I would lubricate it after with a lubricant, or just throw a lubricant in to start if you only have that.
gotcha. So, give us one more story of just something
Well,
great.
let
Yeah.
me get a few. Well, maybe all I have for you is stories tonight, as far
Well,
as my
no, this is
crazy
great.
story.
I
So I've been run off on by the only scam. I've been scammed by my customers. I've had people drive off with keys. So I've
okay.
chased people through the hood in the middle of the night on the phone with the cops, like trying to keep up with them. I've chased people down that tried to rip me off. I had a customer pee out. She was a she, and
Okay.
she peed out of the passenger seat while I was making her car key. That happened
Okay.
once. This was just working in the city what else? Um, my my most ingenious break-in that I saw is my favorite. This is my favorite. This is the coolest break-in that I saw. The guy broke a window to a shared basement between these businesses. And once he got into the shared basement, he met a locked door. Well, he just cut the sheetrock in the basement. He just cut the sheetrock through the wall and he went up the stairs. Instead of going through the door, he just had a sheetrock knife and he cut a hole in the sheetrock and went up the stairs. And then the next door he got to, that locked from the other direction. And so that was open to him. So now he's had to break one window and cut one piece of sheetrock, and he's in this bar. Okay. Now he's in this
Okay.
bar, and the office door to get into your office is, if you have an interior door, it might feel a little lighter. They're hollow. He just booted that in. So to get to this safe now, he's had one thin layer of old glass,
Right.
one layer of sheetrock, one unlocked door, one hollow door that he kicked in, and he was left with the safe. Now the safe in that restaurant wasn't their permanent one yet, and he only had to cut through like a thin layer of steel to cut a hole in their safe. And I always think about stacking. If you think about the material that he had to pass through to get into that safe, it was nothing. He took the
Right.
path of least resistance, and he went in the basement window and then through sheetrock, through an unlocked door, and through a hollow door that he kicked open. And I thought there was no other way for him
Right.
to like reduce the amount of material he had to go through than that. It was perfect. I thought that was the funniest thing that I had seen, how ingenious that was. He picked out the thinnest surfaces to get through and got right to the safe.
That is hilarious. And so, in my book, School of Errors, that I wrote and published in 2019. Uh, so when the new Freedom Tower was being built after the destruction of towers 1 and 2 in New York, the trade towers, there was all this hyper security, right, as they're building the Freedom Tower. And there was a kid from New Jersey, I wrote about it in my book, right? So a kid from New Jersey, a teenager, who was able to watch the security team for a couple days, and he basically thought, I bet I can get to the top of the New World Trade Center, like without anybody discovering me, not to
Yep.
vandalize or anything. I bet I can do it. So he snuck in at night and he was able to get all the way to the top, and they didn't find him until the next day. And then he gave his side of the story saying, really, like, I went through signs, but I didn't have to break locks. I didn't have to do anything. Once I got onto the premise, it was just easy to get up. So I was just, kind of taken back, and so taken back that I took notes on it and put it in the book of how, we think we can fortify systems that are impenetrable. And there's always these kind of weak areas that we don't think about.
Yeah,
Um,
your weak areas, in my opinion, are your people. When we're talking about big buildings like that, I think the weakest area in any building security is its people. Because when that place is open for business during the day and all those doors are unlocked, The only thing to keep people out of most of those areas is the employees, right? And I am kind of in the habit of walking into whatever room they need me to go into, whether that's a secure area or a non-secure area. And I just kind of walk where I please. I don't care if a room says restricted, don't go in here, because like those are the rooms that people need me on the most, the ones that are the most important to keep locked. So I'm used to being in the restricted areas, and I kind of I'm confident when I'm walking around in there with a tool bag. So I think if you have a tool bag in your hand, that makes you a dangerous man, because people think that you
Right.
belong there. And nobody ever stops and asks me. I can count on one hand over 10 years who has stopped and asked me what I was doing if I was breaking into a car, I was breaking into a house, breaking into a business. I bet you maybe 5 people over 10 years have stopped and said, "Hey, excuse me, what are you doing?" or "Who are you?" or what. Nobody does that. So I think if you are interested in improving the security somewhere where you work, maybe the biggest thing you could do is be a Karen. Everybody's afraid to be a Karen, and nobody stops me. And I could go anywhere, do anything. Nobody stops me.
So
Be a
Josh,
Karen and be on top of people if you care about it.
no, I love that. And um, so I teach superintendent legal courses. So, uh, 3 courses a year, and I show a video that's on YouTube, and I don't have it available right now, but it's easy to find. It's some dude with a ladder, and his experiment was, if I carry this ladder, how many places will just let me in if I say I'm
Yeah.
supposed to be here? And so he'd go to a bank, he'd go to like a theater, he'd be in a boat, and all he had to say was, I'm here, and then he would just kind of leave it open. If they would ask a little more, he'd be like at the theater, like, okay, it's a cinema 4, and they're like, no, we don't call our cinemas that. There's a cinema like, Zebra or something. He's like, I think that's the one. There's like a light out, and they're like, yeah, it's above what, and they showed him the. So this was amazing. If you come in right, and you pose as if you're supposed to be there, and you have the, even the basic equipment, people are just like, okay, he knows what he's doing, he's supposed to be here, don't mess with him. And so in school safety, what I, my years in school safety, I would run these, I don't know what we call them, they're a certain type of drill, but like with administrative assistants, I'd be, at the front of the middle school. So somebody comes in and says, I'm here and I need to look at your HVAC stuff. I'm here from Johnson Controls. And then, of course, they were just somebody, that we had that came in and asked that.
Yeah.
And so then, the office person was supposed to say, okay, like, I need to see some identification, or they would just pull off the website, like, Gerald, your business or your buildings and grounds person asked me to come over here. So I need to know where the, panels are or something. So if you could
Yeah.
show me. And so we did that. I mean, now whether how that would work in an authentic event, I don't know if they would follow through with it, but yeah, it is amazing. So I'll have to find that video
Yeah.
sometime. But if you look the part, and there's been a lot of research on this. I think it was going back to the Milgram experiment back in the 60s. If you look like you're an authority, people just be like, okay, boom. And it probably has something when you approach, like you probably have your vehicle well marked, I'm guessing,
I
as
that reminds me of another story. I was asked to repo a Hummer, and it was fight night at this bar, and the lady says, "Hey, I'm gonna get this car towed back to my automotive shop. I know where it is. I'm gonna have it towed back." I said, "I'll just repo it. I'll make you the key, and I'll save you the tow, and it'll be an easy car to do." Well, this one I did differently, and I figured I wouldn't want my van and all the flashy light, all the bright lights. I wouldn't want to draw attention, so I'll park a little bit further away. I had a lettered van parked a few spots over, and I went to do this key for this Hummer, and I was trying to do it sneaky this time. And when I was trying to be sneaky, the cops got called. People stopped asking me what I was doing. The
okay,
time I was trying to be sneaky was the time that people noticed that something wasn't right. And 4 squad cars pulled up, 2 from each side, and they were like, "What are you doing?" And I had the biggest vice grips you can have, which is
right,
about the same color as the stainless steel slide, right? So I
right.
like dropped it. So I had a couple squads pull up on me thinking I was trying to steal this car, and I was, but legally
Right.
trying to steal it for the owner. Um, but but back to what you were saying just a second ago, I wanted to tell you my favorite as a locksmith, my favorite crime movie, burglary movie, is called it's Casper Carr. If you search that, Casper with a C, Carr, his last name, his first and last name. There's a movie about a guy who's a burglar, and it's like a mockumentary. And I thought that was the most accurate burglar movie that I've ever saw, and I liked it. So if anybody wants to see a good crime film, Casper Carr is the most realistic breaking and entering that I've ever seen. It's something about Casper Carr. You can't. It's a break-in movie. It's a movie
Yeah,
about breaking into stuff.
I got it. It looks like it was called Street Thief with Casper Carr.
Now
That's
he does the expert version of what you were just talking about, the guy with the ladder, or saying you're with Johnson Controls to do the HVAC. That is the guy that takes it to the nth degree and gets into buildings like that. And I thought that was the most realistic thievery movie I've ever seen, and I've seen it a few times. I'll probably watch it again soon. Now I didn't get the call from the Randy couple that lost the handcuffs, but my cousin's a paramedic, and he did.
really
I got a
okay.
couple. Yeah, it was somebody handcuffed to a bed. Yeah, but he was a paramedic. I don't know. I'm guessing the fire department just cut him off or something. But no,
Oh my God.
there's more weird calls. It just takes something's got to cue the memory for it
Okay.
to surface. But yeah,
So
it's been a weird business. It's been a weird stuff does happen. It's part of working 24/7, I think.
so so has anything ever and I have to ask this, paranormal happen, or any like haunted type things that you've been brought into? And I ask
Well,
that because I have friends of the show who have paranormal channels and things like this, and sometimes they'll say, yeah, door locks seem to be something that is triggered by the paranormal. Just asking.
no, I haven't. I had a cabinet slam shut once, but it wasn't related to work, and it scared me.
Okay.
It slammed shut in the middle of winter. All the windows were closed. It scared the crap out of me. I went outside and had to cool off, like before I could go back in my house, and I didn't like that. But that was the only thing ever. So that's my
Wow.
paranormal story.
It's a shout out to our friend Ting Ting. So yeah, I haven't had any real paranormal stuff going on here, so which is good. But um, so so we've talked about some of the crazy calls. Anything that happened which was like, I guess way better than what you thought. Like someone was like, "Thank you so much for this, and here's a cake I just baked, and I'm giving it to you," or like just how thankful, like how you saved somebody's day, and they were so grateful for it.
It's just like anything else. Sometimes people are mad, and like if I do, they don't like seeing me at all. In fact, the quicker I do it, the more unfair the price gets, right? And then other people, uh,
Right.
you do it quick and they're appreciative. But other people think it's kind of an unfair thing. I think that's. But it's nice to get tips. Sometimes people tip me. Who knows what contractors you are and are not supposed to tip, right?
Right.
But it's nice
Yeah,
when people tip me. I've got a couple $100 tips, which is cool. On like even small jobs, like it was a huge tip. But
that's very cool.
people don't tip me so much anymore. I had a lot of excitement when I was starting off on my own. I was telling everybody I just started. There was a lot of excitement. I think there's a lot of excitement for a young new business owner. But well, since I'm not new anymore, I don't tell people that, and the excitement's kind of gone. But when I was starting out, I think I was pleasantly surprised how supportive the public was. Anybody was trying it. People think it's really hard to start a business.
Yeah.
I think it's really easy to start a business. Obviously, the hard part's maintaining profitability, right? But I
Right.
think it's very easy to try your hand at if you have the opportunity to try it. I would say starting a business itself was the only part that was easier than I thought it would be.
Wow. So I want to get back to that in just a second. First, Heath has a question. You saying, "Hey, the best key to keep with you is an elevator bypass key." What's your thought on that?
I don't know what that is, but it's
I
probably something for the fire department. I know that
Okay.
the fire department has cooler keys than me, probably. I'm guessing that has something to do with that.
Okay. So how did COVID change your responses, right? Did you have to, um, you know, what, I guess what was involved with that? The social distancing, the
Yeah.
sanitizing, people are like, hey, don't come into my house, or like, how did that make things different for you?
Well, it didn't change anything for me except for I lick doorknobs for a living. I feel like I probably have the dirtiest job out of everybody to touch every doorknob. So I had planned to get COVID early on. I thought I would get it, first couple weeks work, and it just didn't happen that way. Nothing really changed for me at all aside from a little less consumer interface. Like people were they were very stationary, and I need
Right.
chaos. I need people to be moving around.
Yeah.
I need you drinking. I need you losing your keys. I need you fighting, breaking up with your spouses. I need all that bad stuff is what my business, a business of locks, is based off. All that bad stuff that can happen. So all the chaos is good for me, and I think COVID actually sort of reduced the crime briefly. I
Okay.
don't. People just stopped moving around. I don't know. COVID sort of slowed things down for me. People didn't go as many places and do as many things, and they made less mistakes for it.
Were people freaked out when you arrived, or did they like put a mask on, or like, here's a can of Lysol when you're done, like spray everything
Yeah.
down, or nothing like
No,
that?
most people were fine. If I get the vibe that somebody's nervous, especially if it's in their own house, I try and be respectful of that.
Okay.
But yeah, most people up were in my area aren't. It hasn't affected my job too much.
Here's a question from Heath. He's saying, he's asking, how many Euro locks do you run into working?
Luckily, not that many. I'm not a fan. I
What is
don't
a
think I'm
Euro
a big.
lock, by the
I
way? I
think
don't know.
it's a style of a log that you might likely find in more often in Europe, but in the States, it's in our storm doors a lot. The
Okay.
lock cylinder that's in your storm doors, when those are easy to bypass, so don't rely on them.
Wow. We have some bad news here from Bolo. He's saying his ex-wife changed the locks when I was
Yeah,
married to her.
they're a big part of my clientele. Ex-wives and girlfriends are big.
Bolo's like, why is this key not working? And then he's like, why is my luggage out
Well,
on the
I
front
had
porch?
I had a lady tell me she had called me to her house to rekey it, and she said her ex was drunk on her doorstep, and it was on record. It was being recorded on her ring, and he was trying keys to get into her house, and he thought, ah, damn, she heard him say on the ring recording, I'm gonna go home and get my copy or whatever, and so when she played back the Ring doorbell footage from the night before when he was trying to get in. She heard him say that he had a copy of the key, and I had to come rekey it.
Holy
Yeah,
smokes.
yeah.
That is
I'm
so.
glad I'm not dating. I don't envy them at all.
I don't know, but it sounds like Bolo here has got some crazy things going on. Also, I guess John Rice is saying water keys are handy too.
I
Do you
have no
know?
idea what that is.
Okay, I don't know what that is, buddy. Yeah, Heath is saying they sell them on eBay. I don't know if it's the water key or whatever, or this elevator key or cuff key. Like Houdini's from Appleton, Wisconsin, which isn't that far from me. Although I doubt he's still alive. I wouldn't want to try to call him right now. So traditional keys, like, right? I'm gonna, well, ooh, this is disheartening. Here's the keys to my 2008 Impala, which I sold a few months ago. I probably should have included these in the deal.
Yeah.
All
Yeah, you
right.
probably should have.
Well, that's disheartening. It didn't affect the price at all, but
Well, if you ever want it back.
right. I know where it is. I know the guy I sold it to. Well, this isn't working. I thought I had keys in here, but I don't. All right. So traditional keys, right? Traditional, well, here we go. This is a traditional key. We're moving though from traditional keys to
That's not a traditional key. See, you're the guy that doesn't know. It's inside that plastic. There's a little transponder in there, so it's not traditional.
okay, so there's a transponder in here. Okay, so
Yeah, it's in the plastic.
got it.
It's embedded.
So I'll take just this part right here. So the old style metal key, which is gone now, and it's just simply a fob. But then people are building homes. So I've got a friend who is building a home in Alberta, Canada, said everything is wireless digital locks. I can do it from my phone, stuff like that. And I'm like, oh, okay. So, what is your thought, Josh, on as we move, or people who have done this, they go from the traditional keyed locks to digital locks, the advantages and disadvantages. What happens if it gets hacked, or what if someone and that would be my concern, right? Like someone hacks your lock, or someone can more easily break into your lock because they can. It reminds me of the movie. Remember the movie War Games with Matthew Broderick?
Nope.
You should watch that. It's free also if you watch it with commercials on YouTube. But War Games. So yeah, Broderick was able to defeat at NORAD some digital codes on locks. But what's your thought on? Are you seeing more of these digital
I
locks?
wouldn't.
Or
I wouldn't know anything about hacking them. I'm too dumm. I don't know anything about computers or hacking locks.
okay,
I don't think that that's a real threat. I'll tell you, if you're gonna put one on your house because it's convenient, spend the money on a nicer one. The cheaper ones are really, really cheap and they break easy. So if you're gonna do it, spend a couple $100 and get one that'll last a few years. The cheap ones aren't worth it, in my opinion.
okay,
So if you're gonna get a push button, spend money on a nicer one. I like Schlag stuff. And I don't even sell it because I can't get it cheap enough, that like cheaper than Menards would.
right.
Wholesale, I can't buy it cheaper than you can buy it at Menards, for is what I mean. But yeah, Schlag's a great brand. If you're putting stuff on your house, just stick with that. It's tried and true. And if you want to go electric, get their brand electric. I don't know about hacking anything. I'm sorry.
Okay. No, um, so Martin is saying the backdoor code was Joshua. Joshua was the son of the professor who
Okay.
developed this nuclear defense system. Yeah, the Whopper, this computer. You'll love the movie. You'll have to check it out. It's back in '83. It was Matthew Broderick. He had hacked into the system by accident, and then almost started World War III, which is kind of ironic considering what's happening right now. But so digital systems. Do you think? So what are your thoughts on like these ring door systems? And do you think?
I think they're creepy as far. Oh, so
Okay,
I think they're creepy. I personally, and especially in Canada today. Which, sorry, Canadians, for that act being passed this afternoon.
right.
Yeah, I think the electronic stuff and the cameras, I don't have it on my house. I just think having cameras around, or a Alexa or any of that, I don't like it personally. I don't sell a lot of electric stuff unless for commercial application, in which point it becomes very helpful. I think it's kind of gimmicky on a house, but I think in a commercial setting, it's actually really functional. Is that allows you then in a commercial setting to add and remove access easily and quickly. So if you have a disgruntled employee and you know he needs to not get in Monday, well, you can do it yourself. It allows you some. It can if electric stuff allows you independence, by all means. If that gives you a little bit more independence for your own security, that might be the
Okay.
one benefit of it. But other than that, I think they're finicky and they're unreliable. But for the control aspect, to be able yourself to add or remove access for an individual, I think that's great. But I think beyond that, it's gimmicky and it's a waste. Unless it's maybe a surveillance thing like a Ring doorbell, that's not really my wheelhouse so
Yeah,
much. But uh,
I was, like I said, I was just surprised when I went out and was kind of going around my neighborhood of all the ring doorbells, that people had. And I was like, wow. I mean, it just kind of caught me off guard.
and
It was,
those,
yeah,
yeah, they're more common than you think. And most of the time I'm on them, I don't even realize. So I gotta be careful what I say to myself when I'm waiting for people. They have great audio. I always worry, like, have I ever been on one of them and I'm cussing out something? I don't know.
yeah. They're like, who are you? I'm like, I am here running for city office. Why are you here? I'm here for city office. Okay, I'll be right out. All right.
Yeah,
Oh,
he's right. So with the gun safes and stuff too, that's another thing you can't cheap out on. A $500 safe is not, unless it's about the size of your microwave, it or smaller, it's not a good. So pay attention to a fire safe and understand that it's anybody can hack into those. When I mean hack, I mean like hack away at your cheap safe. people don't know how thin those cheaper safes really are. I think cheap safes are really good at looking robust. Like I saw one at Costco uh, earlier this week for $500, a gun safe that might have held maybe a dozen rifles, and I thought
Okay.
they do so for gun safes and stuff like that. I think they do a really good job of making them look a lot more robust and secure than they really are. Another thing I just thought of, I think that people are often fooled by how secure their safe might look.
Right. Right. Okay. That makes sense. So Heath wrote transponder relay to read the car key left on the counter on the other side of the door to start your car. That was a thing for a while. We were kind of talking about that to start, but are you, this is something again, Josh, you don't see that much of people having their cars stolen because someone has hacked the.
No, I don't see it that much, and I would remember it too because I
Okay.
kind of admire that kind of crime. I think it's interesting. It's a refreshing break from like normal stuff. I don't know. I've never seen anything cool, really. I've never seen any creative or good criminals aside from the one I
Okay.
told you about. The one where the guy went through the window and up the stairs, and he didn't. He kind of just went around everything. That was the only good crime I've ever seen. I don't have faith in criminals. I don't. They're not. They're not unique. They're not smart for the most part. They all do the same thing. Most of them will try and kick in your door if you're the weak one. And a few of them got the balls to break your window, especially if it's that rural property, your hunting shack.
Right.
So, but no, they're not much. They're not good. There's not a lot of good criminals. That's one thing I learned about crime. They're not unique.
That is, yeah, that's pretty fascinating, right?
Yeah.
Like, um, we think that people are really, I mean, so I interviewed maybe a year and a half ago, Larry Lawton, America's biggest jewel thief.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
I'm on your show.
and I interviewed Larry again and wrote a chapter about him in my book that's coming out April 11th. And I have Larry. Yeah. So I know Larry Lawton, which is really cool, right? Um, and yeah, he was at the Daytona, like what, 500 was that a couple of days ago or something? I don't know. He was at a race, and but so one of the things that Larry talked about is he goes, before I would do I'd break into a jewelry store, I would watch it for a week, and I would figure out when the sun was setting, like
Yeah, I heard him say that. I know.
the difficulty on the windows, and so he's telling me all this stuff, and something like Larry studied, the crime, and it was amazing. So when I had Larry on my show, and then I interviewed him for my book, I had one question. I said, "How'd you find out about 9/11?" Because he was right incarcerated, maximum security prison, and then the prisons all went on lockdown. So he's like, no one's ever asked me that question before, but yeah. So the Larry Lawton people are really pretty rare. And I also, Larry's released from prison and is doing great things for community and for youth. And one of the stories too was when he was robbing a jewelry store, there was an elderly couple, and then they were kind of scared. And he's like, just sit down and just don't say anything. And then the police interviewed them later, and they said he was a really nice robber. So I'm like, Larry, remember that? But yeah, so yeah, Larry. So anyway, but we kind of got off on a side of someone who really studies, and someone who's trying to probably break into your. And I think the reason, right, if I'm not mistaken, but the reason a lot of these places are getting broken into is it's probably like drug related. People are trying to find either money or find things that they can take and sell for drugs, like opioids and stuff like that. At least in my area, that's more what the police
Yeah,
are
I'd
seeing.
say you'd have to be high to pick that for a job. That's a dangerous job.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my goodness. This is Heath is saying, maybe you know what this is. Josh, I don't. TL15, TL30. Look on Craigslist. You can find some good deals. TL15 safes.
So he's talking about the rating on it. I don't remember what TL stands for, but the numbers have to do with the bigger the number, the longer it takes to break into, and the letters have to do with the force required. So a TL might mean like with power tools, you can expect it to take 30 minutes we can guarantee it'll take 30 minutes or longer if he's got a nice saw. That's probably what a TL30 is. I'm not, safes aren't my strongest point. I don't sell a ton of them. I can open them with my fingers though. Hey,
Really?
I'll show you something cool when we come back from, let me grab it quick.
Okay, well, let's do it. We'll hit the break right now. So the show's still going on, everybody. I'm going to so hang in there.
Yeah, before I get off, I want to show you what the paper, like when somebody's cracking a safe. I want to show you just kind of what the data looks like that I take down.
Okay, so let's do that. I will go and do our intermission thing here. So we'll have a 2-minute break, and then we'll be back, and Josh will show us that paper. All right, sounds good.
If anybody wants to know how to do anything, I'll tell you whatever. I don't care.
All right, guys.
I'm gonna get some more coffee.
Hang in there.
All right.
Yum, yum. It's time for a tasty and refreshing snack.
Hey everybody! All right, this is cool. I'm learning a lot. I had no idea. So, and let me change the background here. So Josh is returning. So we're talking about. Let's see here. Thanks so much. Ting Ting is saying I prefer a good set of butcher knives. Yikes! Shape charges don't take that long. Vanessa sounds like. Wow. Sounds pretty crazy. Most safes can be broken into with an angle grinder. Wow, Martin. Yeah, sounds like Home Alone.
He's right.
Okay, so Josh.
All right, so I wanted to show you guys what it looks like when you actually do crack a safe. I saw a scene on Ocean's 11, or what was that? Oh, anytime I see it, it's just like anything else. When you see your profession done online, they never do it right. So I thought I'd just show you guys like my notes when I'm cracking it, what it looks like. I wonder how well you can see this, guys. So do you see what those? Can you kind of see what I? It's all numbers, right? None of it's making sense. All random.
Yeah, I can.
So that's my that's what I'm recording as I crack it. I wanted to show you guys how to crack a safe quick, and then I think that's all I got for you. Can we do it quick in a few seconds? Do you want to see how it works?
I do. Yeah, you bet.
All right. Now, back of a oh, this is bad. So this is the inside of one, right? If I flip it around, and when you're cracking a safe, you're spinning everything in here, and you're feeling it. And so when you get to this part here, I can feel this with when I hit it just so slightly on the wheel. You see that? I can feel that, and I can feel that. I can feel the left and the right side. Okay. Every time I hit that, I feel it. Every time I hit that, I feel it. Well, it looks like this, or it looks like this, right? So I'm measuring that distance. That distance gets measured. About 50 times you measure that. And as that distance changes, you get your different numbers. And it's literally as simple as that. You just measure that little distance once you know how to find it. Did you ever think it would be that simple? Cracking a safe. It's just measuring that over and over, distance left to right, and you gotta keep checking it. I mean, it's not quite that simple, but it's just the two things inside there. You're just picking one thing you keep measuring over and over.
Holy smokes, man!
It,
That
that's how it works.
So that'll get you. So as you measure that, you're getting the first number, and then like, how does it work for the second number and the
And
third?
I think I opened a can of worms thinking I could try and explain it that quick because I thought it would be easy. But yeah, you take a measurement at a certain point, and you basically are using the safe lock itself to measure points within itself. So you're using the lock to measure a point within the lock. And as that point, as you record that measurement, it tells you what the combination is.
Wow, that is amazing.
I
No, it's no. I had no idea that that's how that worked, right? And so so if you were to have a lock from, so when's an example when you've used that? I mean, someone is trying
I've
to.
never used that. I've got funny, right? I've got 3 notebook pages full of practicing cracking safes, and I've never got paid to crack one. I've only done them for practice. Nobody ever calls me to open safes, and then when they do, it's probably a keypad, right? A push button. So this is
Okay.
learning how to crack these it wasn't for any other reason other than to kill time. And I'm not good at it, but I do it because it's kind of fun for me. It's really fun when you feel it open and you're like, oh my god, that actually happened. I just cracked that. That's kind of an adrenaline rush for me.
Man, that is
Yeah.
amazing. So, you mentioned the digital keypads, and some people have mentioned them. So, what's the deal then if someone is approaching you and they're like, "Here's a digital keypad and I can't get into this," or whatever it is, and you're like, "So, how do you approach that?"
I don't have any. I don't. There's no tricky way I know how to abuse an electrical lock by way of its electrical components. Usually, if I'm going to get through your electrical lock, the weak point's always going to be the mechanical part. So, yeah, I don't know any tricky software ways or hacking ways around electronic locks, if that would be an IT guy thing. Anything related to that is a IT guy. There's no locksmith that knows much about computers that I know of. We're kind of simple folk.
Well, Jim McIntosh is saying, how long is a quarterstaff? A regular bow staff is 6 feet long. I don't know what that is. Do you know what that is?
Mm-mm.
I'm not sure where that's going. So, wow. All right. So, what keeps you like wanting to do this job, right? Like,
Money, yeah,
like
just
what?
money.
Yeah.
Once I have my 200,000 from Cappy's book I read, I'll be done.
Yeah, Cavi has just been cruising out the videos lately. So that is some. Which book? I mean, because now I think he's releasing. I don't know, maybe his 12th or 13th
I
book.
read Benjamin's Retirement, Poor
Yes.
Benjamin's Retirement,
Yep.
and I read Curse of the IQ. I
Gotcha.
don't know if I have the curse, but I read the book because it's nice to have on your shelf.
Yeah, I've have a few of his books I'd love to review for Reconnaissance Man, which I think is really underrated. So he talked about when you're 17, 18, 19, you need to get out and travel and figure out, places that you might want to live. And like, right, Minnesota or Wisconsin, if you like to do things outdoor that are more summerish, right now is probably not real great for you. Like I like to bike, and tomorrow we have an ice storm, so that doesn't match. But I thought Recon Man was really cool. But yeah, I'm looking forward to his. He's got, I think it's called The Menu. I don't know too much more about it, but so I'll
First
tell
I
you
heard of it, so
I'll tell you an
yeah.
Aaron Clary story, which will make, which I've never shared with anybody. So I know Aaron, so he's a friend of mine. Actually, I've got Aaron on my cell phone, and we talk once in a while, stuff like that. But so we're both from Wisconsin, and he bought a classic car, and so this was a while back, and anyway, it didn't have seatbelts in it. And I don't know the whole deal, like if it was supposed to have seatbelts because the year it was made, there are already seatbelts. But so he took me out for a ride in this car that he bought, and he basically had me hold or wear the seatbelt, which wasn't attached to anything, and he did
Yeah.
the same thing.
He just
And
wanted you to wear it so you didn't get the ticket.
Right.
Yeah.
So he handed me this thing, and he's like, "Here." So it was like this Velcro, like, seatbelt that didn't attach to anything. And we're out in this like classic car that he bought. And it was the coolest thing. It was absolutely, I mean, this car was just amazing, and all this stuff. But yeah, I just got a kick out of that because he's like, "Oh, like one last thing here, Doc." He's like, "Well, Dave," he's like, "Here," I'm like, what? Does this attach to anything? He's like, "No, like you just wear it. It looks like you got a seatbelt on." I'm like, "Okay, like I'm down with that." And yeah, so he was, yeah, he had me out in his classic car that he picked up. So which was really, it was just fun. It was really fun. So yeah, that's been cool. So I'm trying to think of any, like, I don't think I have anything crazy with lock. I do have, so as we saw that picture of my neighbor who had the door that opened, I have that happening with the door that goes into my garage. It's a steel door, and I've adjusted the plate a few times, but the damn thing still doesn't latch. And this time of year, humidity drops significantly. So like that thing will latch up fine in June and July.
Yeah,
right?
so
But
make the hole bigger instead of moving the hole.
okay,
File it out instead of moving it around.
just okay.
I'll give you a little bit more room.
And then I was also wondering, like, if a pull lever was better than just a turn.
I think it's good for a garage or a utility door to have that. If you have a bag, arms full of groceries, it's just easier to hit it with your elbow than to reach and turn. Yeah, levers are better especially for like a garage.
I think I'm gonna do. And you said, is it Schlag? Is that how it's
That's the
pronounced?
common house brand. That's like that's your Chevy of locks.
Okay,
Schlag. Yep.
be
For
pretty
the
good.
States, it's different in other places.
Gotcha. So yeah, that's something. Yeah, my kids and my wife would say, "Hey, the door's not locking or it's not closing." Like then there's the lock on it, but then I'm like, well, just make sure, make sure it does. But I mean, so yeah, I've run into this issue where the humidity drops so much here in
Yep.
winter. It is absolutely crazy. Like the house will start to like right now it's okay, but there'll be points in winter when the house just contracts and you can go around and you can see the cracks between the molding and then it all disappears in May when the humidity gets back.
Yep.
Um, yeah, and actually I had a one of my the fascia on one of the beams on the front of my house cracked. I mean, it was like 35 degrees below zero, and uh, so yeah, that kind of stuff is going on. How so? Like with cars, because both of my vehicles are, there's no key; it's just a fob. Any tips there? Like, should people replace their fob batteries on a pretty regular basis? Because it's a cheap thing, just replace the battery, or like, what do you?
I'd say to start, just familiarize yourself with a backup plan for when your battery dies. There's going to be a lock somewhere and a key somewhere, and you might not be able to see the key or the lock because the key might be stuck inside your remote. You got to slide it out, and the lock might be the harder part to find. Often they'll hide that behind like a piece of plastic you have to pop off. So maybe if you just know what to do when the battery on your remote dies, because you have to put your key in a specific spot because that transponder doesn't have the right range once you want to start your car. Instead of having a 36-inch range to reach the ignition or the receiver that's near that push button on the ignition, you have zero power to power up your transponder to fire that signal out. So you have to have it set right in the right spot. So you have to, I'd say, figure out how to start your car if it runs out of batteries ahead of time. Or and then if you have a push button start, definitely don't only have one key because those are the people that have the expensive ones. Here's the one interesting. What is he talking about? Tanks and stuff. I bet you all that I could steal an airplane so easy. I
Right.
bet you a tank has probably such a easy key to pick. I don't know. It seems that's crazy. The bigger stuff is, the smaller locks it all has.
Man, that is crazy. That
And
is,
trucks, semi trucks, it's weird. The bigger stuff is, and the more expensive it is, the crap ignitions they have on them.
yeah. So on both of my vehicles, it does have, right. If you can take the fob and somehow maneuver it to pull back the handle, and then there's a little like place to press in, almost like a hex key type thing. I've never done it, and actually, maybe I should, just so I'm
Yeah,
familiar with
some
the
of them are
vehicle.
kind of confusing. That's why I said it sounds dumb, but some of them are actually kind of tricky. Like to get the plastic cap that hides your lock, it might be kind of easy to crack it when you're doing it. But yeah, heavy equipment, you can buy a set of like heavy equipment keys on eBay and they'll have them all on a ring for you and it'll be like 50 different pre-cut keys. Yeah, heavy equipment's easy for sure.
Holy
Um
smokes, man! Like I didn't
my
know any of
biggest
that.
tip, do you know what, Doc? My biggest tip is telling everybody to be Karen. And I never thought I would ever say that, but that's my biggest locksmith tip today is if somebody's doing something that looks weird, don't be afraid to say something to them. And they don't people mind their own business too much.
Yeah, yeah.
I didn't think that that would be my advice to anybody ever, but that is really the biggest thing you have to do is kind of be a Karen.
Yeah. It's good. No, it's good. I talk about it. So one of the things that I see, Josh, and it's not really like it's not a locksmith thing, but it's um, people come in from outside agencies and schools. Like they'll come in from the county. I'm here from County Human Services, and I need to see whatever student. And I'd be like, "Well, do you have an ID? Like, how do I know you're from the county? I don't have to show an ID, because this is." I'm like, "Yeah, you do, because this is, not your property. We need to be
Mm.
identify who you are, that you're safe to enter the building, right? That and also if something happens while you're in here, a lockdown or something, I need to be able to account for everybody who's in the building. So you have to show me some ID." And people just will get really angry, right? I would meet with the buildings and say, hold your position on this, right? If somebody comes in especially from outside agencies. That was a big thing in schools. County agencies thought they could just walk in and just be like, I'm here. And you'd be like, well, you have to wear a visitor badge and we have to check you in. I don't have to do any of that. My bosses say, I'm like, well, too bad. Like, have your bosses call me. But yeah, that is great. And again, that video, I forget which one, dude with the ladder trying to get in places, but it is amazing if you look the part how much you can get away with.
Yeah. And I'll say too, I don't wear a uniform since I work for myself, and even when I worked for somebody else, we never did wear a uniform too. So when I'm doing this, I don't have Locksmith written across my back. In the winter, you'll find me in a camo jacket and Carhartt bibs, like all winter, and that's where I'll go around. Nobody stops me anywhere. I'd say that's the big take home is, if you want more security, you kind of have to be your own security. Yeah.
Gotcha. And I'm reading a Bolo's saying, I stay in my lane, you stay in yours. Bolo's like, why are you here? He's always questioning people. Like, who are you? Bolo had a campaign in Canada. This was before Trudeau. He's like, everybody should wear name tags. So we're just more friendly. But as of now, I think I would drop that if I were you, Bolo. I would not go out in public identifying myself if I lived in Canada, where Bolo lives. It's a bad idea, buddy. Do not do that. So, yikes. Wow. Yeah. So a couple things, Josh. So one is, I thought there was a much higher barrier to licensure for being a locksmith.
It's state to state, and my state's a weak one, and so other states will be a little different. But I haven't heard anything for any other states than like maybe like a 2-year course and some credits. And what else? There's just a background check, but it's just like the same background check a plumber or anybody else would get. It's not like a special locksmith background check.
Okay. So yeah, I'm bringing this up on locksmith kind of per state, and yeah, I'm surprised, right? So that was something that would have thrown me off, because I thought there was right. So good from Bolo here, but and as we go through basic security things, the 101s, like, don't have anything fancy or kind of like calling attention to your place, have automatic lights set up, and I guess in my thought, it's like, don't be afraid to set up a lot of lights. Like, I've got it set up so my whole area lights up, and my lights are 20 feet up, so they're throwing a lot of coverage. You said sirens too, Josh?
Yeah, and you'd be surprised at what you like for privacy. Like, if you have a nice private backyard, somebody else is going to appreciate that.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. So doing those things, having a deadbolt, again, I mean, I think back to probably every place I ever rented before I bought a house just had a regular, $10 lock on it. And that was it.
And it's okay if it's cheap. Just make sure you actually have the deadbolt, and also know that you can have a hole installed for a deadbolt to be installed into. That makes sense, right? So I could also know if you're missing the hole for the second one up top, we can add that. I wanted people to know that. People don't know. Somebody will come out for an affordable price and drill an extra hole in your door for you for a deadbolt.
Got it. And Locksmith then will also have some deadbolts, like you have some that you would sell or you'd recommend, one I use, and it's reliable, so I can come out and put this in your house. Because I think people kind of get mixed up on that. Like, should I go to the carpenter? Should I do a builder?
There's a little bit of overlap, and that's okay. A carpenter can do what I do, and you could put a deadbolt on without any. It's all easy. I mean, that sort of anything that goes on a house is consumer ready. So it's adjustable. You don't have to take any measurements. It's standardized. It's out of the box, ready to drop in. So anything for your house is going to be already dumbed down to easy, stupid easy to use. You don't have to think. You just go get a deadbolt. You don't have to make sure it's for the right size door. It's like
Oh,
they took all the thought out of it, which is nice for a
okay.
consumer.
Yeah, no, that makes sense yeah, to have that. Okay, so deadbolt is a definite. Um,
And your
and
3-inch screws.
3-inch screws, right?
Yeah.
And those never come with the
It's really
pack, right?
important. That's why I keep saying it. It's
And
really
yeah,
important.
yeah, and drill. Yeah, make sure you're getting into. Well, I mean, you eventually you're going to hit studs over there because the door is put into something, right? But yeah, like a 3-inch screw. I thought it was interesting too. You said it's less likely that windows are going to be broken through. Still happens, but it's less likely, right? So secure your doors. Um, and again, if someone is locked out of their place, like maybe because they're panicking, like what are maybe the first 2 3 things they should think about so they can have a better experience with a locksmith? So they don't. I think the first one is they're going to find they're going to do a search, and the scammers are going to pay to be the first person come up on the search. So like you said, if someone is telling you $10 $15, you got to be like, what is the cost for you actually to come out here and unlock? What is the project cost, right?
If you're gonna get something small and simple done, you can avoid scams easily by getting a price up front. Yep. So there's a ton of phone numbers for that lead to a scam. Wow, what was I? How do I say that better? There's a lot of you'll find there's dozens and dozens of those opportunity. There's dozens and dozens of numbers for you to call, no matter what city you're in, that are a actual scam. So you do have to know about it because there's in my area there's half the numbers you can call online are the bad ones and the other half are the real ones. But all those dozen bad companies are really just one big company that turn and burn different company names all the time. So I
Gotcha.
wanted people to be aware of that they have to get their price ahead of time, or that they may avoid a scam if they see that red flag of the low service call is kind of their like that's kind of their signature ad. Their signature Google AdWords deal is like a $15 service call.
Okay, I'm going to just do locksmith search here near me.
And if
Locksmith
you're
near me.
more rural, it might even make it easier for you to find the scammer.
Okay. Yeah, I'm coming up with a whole bunch of different lock stuff, which I'm not even sure if these people are. So I don't want to give up my exact
Do
locations
you
here,
see
but
something with a couple 1-star reviews? Because that would be.
well, yeah, I'm seeing like I've lived in this city for 20 years, and I'm like,
And if you
this
follow the maps and if you see
right.
stuff that's not really there, that's another one of their. It'll be a house. Your
This is
house
a
might be
house.
yeah. Your house might be a locksmith shop on Apple. There's a good
Um,
chance.
this is and this one says no credit cards accepted. So
So they don't like paying the government. Fair enough.
um, so yeah, and the reviews here, great service, very reputable. Okay, and 100% completely happy with the service we received. Definitely would use again, but that doesn't seem like that's really like a deep interview here or a review. Oh, here's one for my area. This company participates in classic bait and switch pricing tactics where they give you a low estimate over the phone, then they ask you for a couple $100 for 5 minutes of work upon arrival. The job gets done, but then for $100 minimum. So that's one right
Yeah,
here.
and the sick part is not when it's you or me, but it's like my grandma, and she don't know what's going on, and
Yeah,
that's when it gets really bad. They're really bad people sometimes. Sure, some of those guys at work maybe aren't the worst, but some of them are the worst. And you're calling them when you're in a tight spot and you're already stressed.
right. Oh my God. So this is one I've thought about. So New York Outcast is saying stash
Yeah,
extra key,
100% do it. Yeah. And
right?
you don't even have to get a hide a key, just bury it. It's brass, it might be kind of corroded, but it'll probably work if you dust it
Right.
off. Don't worry about just hide it. Definitely get one. Or here's another trick you can do. If you have the original keys, you'll see a series of 5 numbers on it. Well, if I had one, I'd pull one up. Well, you got your house keys on you?
I don't know.
Okay, good, because I would have just told people how to cut a key for your house.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
well, if you look on your keys, sometimes you'll see a series of 5 numbers, and they'll be like maybe 43214, right? Those numbers are the cuts of your key. If you write down the cuts of your key, if you knew what the cuts of your key were, you'd be able to have a key cut for you remotely, which is kind of cool. So if you were out of town and you wanted a key cut for somebody, they'd be able to just go to a locksmith with that information that you gave them. So if you know the cuts of your key, you can have that cut anywhere in the world by a locksmith by just telling them. That might be that's kind of off into the weeds. I don't know.
Wow.
Maybe never mind that one, but
Well, I had no idea. Like that was
the cuts of your key are always written on it. If you were trying to get your house sitter in or your dog sitter in, just sending a picture of a key might be able to help you. But no, I'd say, yeah, that right there.
Okay. So let me do. So that's what it's called. There is bidding.
Yep. So the bidding, those are the cuts of the key, and the bigger the number, the deeper the cut.
Okay.
And the deeper the cut, the longer the corresponding pin.
26495. And then this, what does keyway mean?
That's there's if Schlag has a dozen different locks that they sell, that's the C keyway, and that's its own unique shape. So if you like put a square in a square hole, a circle in a circle hole, the C keyway is its own specific shape. Like if you're looking down the barrel of a gun the long way, that's the shape. That's the profile.
So if you knew these numbers, right, and you called and said, I can't get into my house, but here, it's almost like,
it's almost like doxing yourself, if you will. Yeah, it's information you don't necessarily want out there. That's just sitting there. So you might want to protect that if you're.
It's almost like taking a picture of that and keeping it on your phone, right? Like, or keeping it in a.
It could be helpful.
Some file, right? Like if you took a picture of that key, or I mean, that's kind of interesting because, right, if you had a picture and up on a Google Drive, I mean, no one's going to, but if you had an emergency situation and you're like, hey, we got a picture of my key. And
well, you're going to get a copy because you're going to think about getting a copy beforehand.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. A spare key.
Oh, gotcha. It's fun. I have like 6 feet of rock all the way around my house. So if I were ever to hide a rock, by the time anyone tried to figure out where that key was, they'd be like, I'm out of here. I've already gone through 35,000 rocks. Like, it's just not worth it.
Worked all day and get paid.
It is. Oh my God. So let's touch base on the questions here. And as we get into wrap, this has been great. So let's see.
Nobody's asked me nobody wants to know how to get into anything. Or
anything here?
Nothing.
Any questions?
I'll offer any of the secrets.
John Rice, Martin, Robert Ribbit Harrison. Robert saying, make a magnetic stash box in your car somewhere for. I remember that was a big thing here.
Yeah, my stepdad loved those. Yeah, we'd always had those growing up. And I locked my keys all the time in growing up before I even knew what a locksmith was in my car. And here was my trick to getting my car open. So anybody who's buying the locksmith kit that I recommended to you earlier to get, right, the pump air wedge bag with the long reach tool, that'll unlock most cars. And it's $50 and you should have it in your garage. I forgot to tell you how easy it is to scratch the paint with those. When you put them in the door, that paint comes off like butter. You think it's like a hard enamel-y layer that's difficult to scratch. Not with the unlock tool. So when you guys are doing that, please know the paint just rubs off like butter. And be real careful not to scratch yours. But what I was gonna say is I always locked my keys in my car growing up. And what I did was I had crappy cars. I didn't care about scratching, obviously. So I'd pry it and get my wallet jammed in there, and then I'd pick a tree that had like the right shape and size branch. And I'd just get the nice branch that kind of had a hook in it or whatever. I recommend you just pick a tree branch that has a convenient shape for your purposes. And I used to pry open the door and just shove my wallet in there to get me space for a hanger or stick or whatever I could. But I always had crappy cars that I could do that to. So
Wow.
if you're driving something nicer because you're a grown up, be careful.
I remember my Duster. I could pull that window out quite a bit before. Yeah, it never snapped off on me, but I'd get quite a bit of distance, so I could sneak down in there and try to grab stuff out. My God. Wow. That is. This is John Rice. My grandpa taught me to string wire through car key and tie it to the frame. Okay. Yeah. Coat hanger magnet bounces off of cars. Heath is saying. So I remember those things when I was growing up. They would always rust really bad in Wisconsin too, like after a season, because of the road salt. So, but any other questions for Josh, like on crazy lock stuff, or like, hey, if you find like a safe or anything or whatever you get locked out of, or if you bend a key, or any tricks of the trade, or you're having a hard time turning your locks, so like how should you condition them, or like, I mean, just what are you thinking, or also like how do you I mean, see, I thought I mean, it's almost like, let's say I'm not here, I'm on vacation, and someone claims that they are the homeowner, right? And then they're on my property and they call a locksmith and they say, hey, I can't get in my house. It's almost, I don't know what the Wisconsin laws are, but I'm almost like, whoa, like someone could actually like,
it's almost a little frustrating that I might let you somebody into your house. That might be a little frustrating. I go with my gut, and I guess I understand what it takes to get into a house, and I think it's harder to call a locksmith and take that risk than it is just to kick the door in. At the end of the day, if it was me, what they say, no face, no case. What other ways are there to say that? Leave no witnesses. I don't know. Isn't like here's one from Larry. 3 can keep a secret if 2 are dead. Nobody's gonna want another witness, right? And if you do, and the cops come, I'm gonna tell on you. 100% telling on you. I'm gonna snitch. Don't involve me in your crime. I'm gonna snitch on you.
Yeah, Larry would say that, and I'd be like, whoa, like it's just you and me and someone else here. So am I in trouble, Larry? How are things going down here?
I just don't worry about it anymore. I don't, and because like I said, even when I tried to worry about it, the truth is, if people want to pull one over on it, they will. You can give me some story. You're the house sitter. You'll have. I do normally with house sitting things though, just so you know, like with that one in particular, for whatever reason, I usually have the people text me a picture of their driver's license. I don't know why I do that, but I do for that particular situation. I usually ask them to confirm if they're like trying to have the work done remotely, and I never meet that person. That is kind of the one. But cops open a lock, verify a search warrant. Oh, I've never worked with that. I've only kicked renters out, and that was for the I've never done a search warrant. I've only kicked renters out.
Okay.
And that was for the sheriff.
Is there any time when you've been like, I'm out of here, I'm just not going to deal with this, like too much drama?
I pretty much you can talk at me and it might go in one ear and out the other. No, not really. If I can normally feel it out ahead of time. Over the phone, if people say, hey, my husband's here, I want him, my ex-husband's in there and we're going to change the locks. I'm like, no, we're not. Cause the sheriff's going to kick him out.
Josh, you're going to kick his ass.
Josh is going to get his extra $25 on the service.
$25 as you show up.
He'll
So, wow. I imagine though, like that situation happens and it's really like bizarre and weird when you approach those situations. So a New York Outcast is saying to me, have your neighbors keep an eye on your place. They do. And actually we have people stay at our house. We have relatives in the area, enough relatives where, and I'm not usually out of here. Like the whole family is out of here very often. That's seldom. And if that happens, then because we have cats and stuff, people, we let them know ahead of time and we're like,
we do
stay at our house. And then they just do. So,
we're lucky enough to have a lady who comes house sit for us when we go on vacation,
Yeah.
and I love that. So we have a dog and a cat, and then the house sitter takes care of everything. You know, I love having somebody come take care of your house when you go. If
Yeah.
you're lucky enough to have that person available to you, we pay her, but
Yeah. That's, I
that's
mean,
great.
yeah, that's kind of the setup that we have going on here. So, and I've taken the time, to get to know my neighbors. As I say, like with my neighbor who I should have just gone over and closed the door, but I mean, I had surveillance on it to. I was getting to a point where like I would have probably done the called police, but not the 911 number in my town, and just said, hey, like, I think my neighbor's door, is malfunctioned, like, but whatever, could you check it out?
I did a welfare check once and the guy was dead.
Okay.
But I didn't go in to, like, investigate further. It was like the lingering odor in the doorway was
Oh my God.
yeah, it was
That
he
is okay.
yeah.
Ooh, wow.
I did a welfare check where the guy was dead once. It was for I think, like, she sort of already knew he was dead somehow. I don't really know. I don't remember. It was years back, but it was kinda like, "There's a dead dude in here, and we just need you to unlock the door." That was
Wow.
and then I unlocked a van once with a couple of bodies in it because it was a cadaver thing. It was like I felt like when I was popping the car open, the bodies were gonna pop up and
Holy
get me.
smokes.
I just did a van once with a couple bodies in it. That was weird. Uh, for me, I don't see a lot of bodies aside from
Okay. Yeah, that is weird because I mean, yeah, people might call you and say, "Hey, like, yeah, my uncle, right? Like, he hasn't answered the phone, and I knocked on the door, and it's locked, and I'm pretty sure he hasn't gone anywhere. Can you like unlock it or something?" That's probably weird. Probably more of a police.
there was police there.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
there was already police there when I got there.
Okay. Jeez. Wow. So, going through the questions here. New York Outcast he says, "Got to run. Have a great night, folks. Thank you, New York Outcast." John Rice, "I need to start a housing service." That could be John Rice's new side gig.
Yep.
Keep an eye out for markings on your house too. If you see symbols, you might want to look into it.
I
Okay.
found a bone on my doorstep, on my threshold. I found a bone on my threshold in this old apartment we rented, when my wife and I were younger, and
Okay.
that was where we had some paranormal stuff happen. So, um,
Really?
yeah, everybody in the house did. I just had the one thing with the cabinet happen to me, but, like, my
Okay.
wife had the pony pulled out of her hair, she said, uh that's the only one story I remember from her, but she thought that was just creepy. That how does that happen? Maybe it sometimes falls off. I don't know. That's
Right.
the one thing she said happened to her in that apartment. But we found a bone on the threshold one day, and I was wondering, is that like some sort of witchcraft, or was that a squirrel eating KFC on my
That
doorstep?
is could be a squirrel practicing witchcraft.
Squirrel eating dinner.
Wow. When I was in college, so I talked about this really um, not well maintained old apartment building where my roommates Nate and Vern, and we lived in this place. It was like $700 a semester for all of us. I mean, it was so run down, but it was like great for like 20-year-old college kids. And the people upstairs were like always kind of loud and stuff like that, and my one roommate Nate was always like yelling at him and stuff like that. So I took a knife and I stuck it in our door with a note of saying like, whatever, like don't complain and stuff like this, the landlord. And then, but my one roommate was in on the deal, Vern, and my other roommate Nate, who actually sent a letter to the landlord through the little Dropbox thing of saying like, hey, these people are being. So like, I came back and I'm opening the door. I'm like, holy smokes! Like, there's a knife in our door and there's like a letter. And then I'm like, and Nate was just like freaking out. But then like he freaked out too much. He's like, I have to call the police. I'm like, oh, don't do that. Don't do that. Let's
Yeah,
kind of think through this here,
let's
buddy.
let's be middle of the road about this.
Let's be middle of the road. Because Vern was like, oh God, we don't want Nate to call the police because we're just trying to like freak him out here a little bit. So then like I had to talk him down. I'm like, I don't know. And then I said, let me go up and talk with them. I mean, let me handle this. I'll take care of it. I'm like, but dude, you've got to lay off. You cannot be sending letters to the landlord anymore. And we never told him like it was a joke. But yeah, he's totally, Nate's like 6'4" too, like really athletic and stuff like this. I'm like, dude, you just let me handle it. Cause like you are on the brink here. This is Russia and Ukraine that's happening right now. Like you've got to take it down. But yeah, he wrote this big letter to the landlord and shoved it through the little box where you're supposed to pay your rent.
I did a mean
So-
prank. I did a mean prank similar where I sent my wife a picture of the cat, and in the background there was a doorway, and in the background of our house was a doorway way in the back, and I put in one of the there's an app I downloaded where you can superimpose a ghost into it.
Okay.
And so I kind of made it like a small background ghost in the doorway, and she never noticed it. And then so a few days later, I had to bring it back up and let her have her look at the picture again, so she would maybe find it the second time I had her look at it. And she dropped her phone, and she wanted to get out of the house right away. It was this little girl ghost, like a girl in like an old dress, like an old fashioned looking dress. It was
Right.
that was fun. So that you can get an app that can like superimpose ghost things, and if you don't try and make it the center of the photo, like for free, it was actually kind of convincing Photoshop.
Oh my God.
For
That is hilarious.
yeah,
Yeah, that kind of stuff I'm totally down
I'm a
for.
baby. I don't like to be messed with though, so I don't mess with other people too much.
Yeah, I try not to, especially the older I get. When I was younger, I did.
Yeah.
But yeah, the older I get, I don't mess with people. So I think which is a good. I'd have to think if I. Oh, so you'll appreciate this. So I'm having a concrete pad on the side of my garage replaced because it's all cracked. I think like the dude put it in himself like 30 years ago. And so I wasn't quite sure where my property line ended. So this was back like in August. So all the stuff with the city, they're like, yeah, it might end here. Maybe it's here. So I actually had the city surveyor come out. I had to pay for that. And they marked the property. And suddenly my neighbor's out there at the time my property's being marked. And he's realizing that his fence and a solid 12 to 18 inches of his property is marked my property. And so like he's looking and he comes over, he's like, so this is like his property? And the guy's like, yeah, this is his property, and like, whatever. And so the dude leaves, the surveyor leaves, and my neighbor's just like freaking out. He's like, do I have to take the fence down? Like, what's happening here? And I'm like, dude, we're all good. Like, he's younger than I am. I'm like, I just need to know I'm putting this, cement here. I just need to know where the boundary is. I'm not asking you to take your fence down. I'm fine with just replacing it where it is. But he was just like beside himself. His wife came home from work. Immediately, he has her come outside and then like, to talk, both of them talk with me or, what do you want to do with this? I'm like, dude, we're good. I'm not. There's nothing bad
Maybe
happening.
he did.
Here.
It sounds like he doesn't like the fence very much.
Well, the fence does suck, but it's his fence, and it sucks. Like he should.
He's a little insecure about his fence. Yeah, he don't.
Yeah, the fence is pretty lame. Like, but yeah, this whole. I mean, it was just funny because you want me to take the fence down, or I have no idea, and I'm like, dude, like you can't. We're so cool on this. Like, don't. It's not a problem. I just needed to know. But it was, but yeah, I could have made it an issue, which that's not me, but if I could have had a little bit of fun with them and that stuff. But I was like, God, one of my other neighbors, like they were out on their porch, like this is like 10 years ago. And I had like a laser pointer and I would like shoot it up in the trees. And then like the one guy is like, hey, like, what's that light up there? And his wife be like, that's just taillights from out on the road. I'd be like, no, it's not. That's not taillights. And then like she couldn't see it because she's facing him. And then eventually, like he'd be like, there's something up there. Like there's a light that's shining up there. And it's just me, I'm doing it from like the backyard. And it's an elderly couple or neighbors. It sounds kind of like bad that I'm saying this, but
As long as we're shining in their eyes, you're okay.
And then she gets up and she goes to the end of the porch and she's like, there's nothing over here. And the moment she sits down and this guy's like, there it is again. And I'm just having so much fun. I'm just, oh my God. Anyway, yeah, that was just hilarious. But yeah, I don't know. Um, I used to do a lot of pranks when I was younger. A lot of pranks. I w- I was what's called a student ambassador at the university. So I would give people tours, like new students or new faculty, prospective faculty, give them tours. And the town, the university was, there was a mountain in the town, and I would give people a tour and I'd say, yeah, this is a inactive volcano. I'm like, the strange thing is, people like build homes around it and they've kind of relaxed the building codes because it really hasn't been active for quite a few years. But actually, this is a really bad scenario because like all of this is really close. And then people be like from Kentucky, they'd be like, what? Be like, yeah, it's an inactive volcano. So we'd like drive up to, it is not, it's just like a piece of granite, right? It's called Granite Peak. Um, and one time I got called in by the dean the day after they interviewed someone for a job, and the dean said, yeah, I have a question for you, David. Why would the person we interviewed believe that Granite Peak is a dormant volcano? Can you help enlighten me on that? I'd be like, yeah, that's kind of, I was telling him, it's a volcano. He's like, don't do stuff like that. So I'm like, okay. I thought it was a hell of a story though. And so then guys,
It
yes,
was just a little hazy, right?
he's saying, well, why did all these homes down here? I'm like, yeah, it's strange, but I'm like, it's a thing. Like it hasn't erupted in like 200 years. So, like people want to build homes, and I'm like, I don't understand it either. You know how this all works, but I'm like, I'm just telling you, it's bizarre, right? To have like the university located at the base of a volcano. He's like, yeah, that's a weird thing. So yeah, probably cost them a lot of great talent during the 2 years I was there. Like everyone that they were going to hire, they're like, I'm out of here. I can't handle the volcano.
Yeah, it's too dangerous.
I love this. There are like a lot of locksmiths around here. Like it checked every box, but the volcano thing was a no deal. So they're like, I don't know, how the hell do you deal with that? I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, I live like 7 miles from here, and I'm kind of like uphill, so lava, pretty safe. But I don't know, big problem. And so, John, any voodoo that could have been the chicken bone outside your door. Careful about adverse possession after 20 years, and God forbid anyone moves in. I don't know what that is.
Adverse possession? Maybe she means like the actual house being the thing.
I don't know what's up with that, John Rice. So, voodoo is how my child was conceived. Yikes, Martin. The only demon that scares me. Whoa, Hillary Clinton. Oh my goodness.
What about who is Klaus Schwab's the scary demon today, right?
Yeah. Holy smokes. Yeah, it is so weird. If we want to venture off, I don't know what your thought is on kind of the whole political stuff going down, but I'm like, for me, this is very strange. I lived through the fall of the Soviet Union. I interviewed Nikolai Razvayu, the Soviet cyclist. He's in my book. He biked outside of Kyiv the day after Chernobyl in '86. So, but I think what's happening right now is so different than any of these things.
I can't believe how much they just lied today in Parliament. I first time I watched hours and hours of their protests. Like, I mean, probably 20 hours of live footage and multiple feeds. And then I listened to Parliament talk about it all day today. It was nothing but lies. I can't believe they voted to pass that for another 30 days.
Right.
It's so unnecessary.
Yeah. Yeah. So the Emergency Act, Powers Act. So it's like, and where does that end? And so, yeah, thinking about that, Canada, maybe both of us do. I mean, living in the northern US, but I have a number of friends in Canada. So they're kind of like, holy smokes, this is really different, like for us, too. And one of the people I interviewed in the book, Robert Travis, lifeboat, rooftop life rafts, his business was in Canada. He got out like 2 years ago because he could kind of see where things were going, moved to Texas and relocated his business. And then also, the Soviet Ukraine stuff. I have friends that live in, in Russia. and then also in Ukraine, and I'm like, yeah, the whole this stuff is much more dangerous than what people think. Like, the whole nuclear aspect to this is there's much more there's much more to this that could escalate very rapidly. And I don't think, I mean, some people realize that and some people don't, but that whole Ukraine area is very dangerous. Um, so yeah, I'm just kind of looking at this of saying, I don't know where things will go. I don't remember anything this unstable in my
Dude,
entire life, actually.
what I think is so interesting is their polling. And when you're having a discussion on the news or you're having a discussion in parliament, it seems like they fall back on public opinion a lot, but it's not like a public vote. It's like they're just trying to always say like this is what most people think. And you're like, "Really? Am I really the fringe minority?"
Right.
It's a are like where do how do most people think? Like is that really how most people? It seems like the game now is always trying to tell you how most people think. Like you're not normal because this. Like most people think this, agree with us and agree with most people. I feel like there's a really really heavy emphasis on weird like public polls that are just cherry picked. I think that's the weirdest thing going on that nobody ever says, "Well, who cares what your poll says?" Like there was no security behind it. That's like your cherry picked results. I feel like we're not we take that answer too often as a serious answer when in my opinion it's really a non-answer.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you. I've always questioned surveys, and as a researcher, I never put a lot of weight in surveys because I could quickly identify like 7 ways surveys were flawed. But yeah, now we have, right, where if this is what is portrayed as like this is what people are thinking, and if you're not thinking that, then you're not only wrong, but like we need to,
You're hateful.
right, you're hateful. And we forget, and I actually have this in my book that comes out April 11th. In December of 2020, after the election, remember AOC was asking for truth and reconciliation committees to let's document everybody who ever contributed to the Republican Party, right? And let's, make these people accountable. And that was a thing. I mean, that kind of stuff was happening. And now it's kind of happening again. Like everybody who's donated $5 to, the trucker thing through, Go Send Get or whatever. And let's figure out who these people are and put their names public and their addresses. And it's like, holy
And they
smokes.
left it up to the banks to decide too,
Yeah.
which is the other thing. And so what was it like 200 over 200 people got their accounts frozen and then it's up to the banks to just come up with some vague reason. And then once they do that, then they give your info to the government. Like
But
that's the requirement. So basically the banks the government just washed their hands of all accountability and gave it to the banks.
yeah, that was totally it. Yeah. And yeah, so you have this weird quasi power that now the banks have, and they can make these decisions. So this whole thing is so bizarre. And as I was writing, so again, I've got Velocity of Information coming out April 11th, which is a book that is like right there on the fringe of like the publisher and all that. Like, will we release it or will we not release it? Because it
Good for
gets
you.
right in
Good for you. That's the perfect place to be. That's where
yeah. And that's through a traditional publisher, Josh. I mean, so I mean, they had a lot invested in it, and as I did, right, like financial, I had time, and it has 471 endnotes, so it's really thoroughly cited, and it's going to, the moment it hits, I mean, it's already becoming kind of a lightning rod because I, in the first fifth of the book, I address essential versus non-essential, right? Like, what was that all about? All of us got up one day and we were deemed essential versus non-essential without any input to that, no due process. And then now it's not essential, non-essential, it's essential or inessential.
yeah.
And can you be disappeared? And actually, the book gets into that toward the end of Are
Yeah.
we hitting this point where we're just going to be tracked in social credit and kind of,
I'm so disconnected from that groupthink that I didn't even think to ask if I was essential or non-essential. I just kept working, and I figured if somebody stops me, we'll cross the bridge then. You know?
yeah, yeah.
I
I, and it's, so here we had a local small business for engines and, leaf blowers and generators, stuff like that. Been around for like 30, 40 years. They were deemed non-essentials. They had to close. So I took a picture of the door. It's in my book. But it's like the same stuff they were selling, like the Home Depot 20 miles away was still open. They could sell, right? But
Yep.
the small business place is like, well, we can regulate so we can bring the stuff outside and social distance and stuff like that. But yeah, it was really weird. The whole essential versus non-essential, which I think people glossed over and they missed how important that was. Like how much of a wedge that drove in society.
Yeah.
It was also weird that, and how arbitrary it was. But I interviewed Jonathan Berger a couple of weeks ago on the show. We were talking about truckers, and this was before the Canada trucking, protests. This was just talking about trucking in the U.S. during the pandemic, start of the pandemic. Of like, okay, so waysides were shut down, truck stops, and so truckers really had a hard time. I mean, they had a hard time before this, but where do you find a place to go to the bathroom, stuff like this? So we were working through some of these things, and he was telling me like, if you park and along, like a ramp to interstate or something, there's no place to park. You wake up, you get a $200 fine on your window and stuff like that. And during the pandemic, there was like there's no places to park because everybody's just driving in. But when that show hit 225 views, like it never got another view after that. It got shut down. He could promote it. I could promote it. And I'm like, that thing just got blacklisted and was gone.
Sure.
Like that. It was so weird. And again, it wasn't about protest. It was about the logistics of, for truckers, what are some things like we were talking, like, what if counties would have opened up their fairgrounds? Like where I live, we are the county seat. We're on an interstate. We have a fairground. We could have opened up the fairground and had 30, 40 semis there overnight, right? I mean, like for a month or two, like we could have done this. So we're kind of just talking about these things, but it was weird because that show got tagged. And but yeah, I feel fortunate, that the book is coming out when it is, and it has a lot of momentum behind it. But it is one of those. I had Kevin Dalton wrote an endorsement for it. He's running for mayor of Los Angeles, and I think his endorsement was, you're going to be either informed or infuriated by the way that David portrays the pandemic playbook. And like, that's on the back cover. I'm like, holy smokes. But I did have I did have an image of one city that had a reporting website for COVID gathering violations. And they wouldn't allow that to be published. They would have challenged that, even though it was on their website. Like I took a screenshot, so I had to take it out of the book because I didn't want to deal with legal stuff. And the publisher's like, it's got to be gone. But yeah, it is. I don't know. It's just kind of a weird thing. But yeah, Canada right now is just, to me, is just so weird to wrap my mind around.
My heart was like, send the Marines up there and get rid of that tyrant. But then I had to take a step back, and I was like, what? That's not how you're supposed to think, Josh. You're thinking like a terrorist right now. Right. Like that's how that's where they grouped me, because I sided with the Canadian conservatives. They would have thrown me in the lot with the bad guys just for feeling like that act was a little bit extra.
Well, right. Yeah. Any opportunity to come to a forum and question things is kind of gone right now. And, I find that in school boards. So I teach these superintendent classes, and I'm like, geez, there's a lot of stuff going on in the country where people will come and they'll question things, and they'll just be shut down, or else the police will escort them out. And I'm like, they're not threatening you. Like, they're asking a question of, like, whether it be a mask mandate or social distancing, how are you enforcing this? Or, like, I took this picture out at a recess and it doesn't seem like kids are socially distanced. Can you help me understand this? And it's like, out of here. Like, your time is done in the police. I'm like, that would have never happened 10, 15 years ago. I mean, again, these aren't people coming in who are threatening people who, you can see their hands. They have everything. They're presenting. They're not. It's kind of, if you present something that people disagree with, they want to shut you down. Not only shut you down, they want to destroy you, like end your career, dox you.
Yeah.
You'll never work again. So it is this strange, time that we live in, and I've never seen it be kind of this as punitive as it is right now. So I don't know, where that takes us, but I don't know, again, your perception on this, but
I have nothing else to contribute for you this evening, except for I'll wrap up what I did. I'd say, for your security 101 tip, know you can have a deadbolt installed even if you lack the hole for it. And if you do have it installed, please make sure you have 3-inch screws. Your automotive security tip, if you have those hasp padlocks you can put on are great if you have tools. If you're a trades guy, use the hasp padlocks, because your car locks can just get punched in. So use the shackles if you can, the padlocks. What else? Avoid the scams by looking for the $15 and $20 service calls. Be a Karen if you're at your place of employment, or if you're sketched out. The only way you're ever going to know if somebody's supposed to be there or not is just by talking to them. At least you have a chance if you stop somebody and ask them what they're doing. That was my number one thing. I thought people's behavior
Okay.
was lacking, was being afraid you're going to inconvenience somebody because you're afraid you're going to what? You're going to annoy them. Well, don't be. Yeah, not if it's a school or something that you care about. Don't be. Don't be afraid to challenge somebody's by asking them just what they're. If that's your place and you're in charge of that security, please, by all means, talk to people. Ask them what they're doing. Nobody ever does that. Everybody's afraid of doing that. And if you were to anybody who stops and says, "What the hell are you doing?" I'm happy to just say, "I'm a locksmith," and nice to talk to you, and that's fine. Thanks for checking. I respect people
Yeah.
that check me for what I'm doing. And then when people walk by like this, like, "Oh my God, I don't want the confrontation," I'm like, "What you wouldn't be working on for me?" Like, come on, stand up for my business and show some initiative. I don't know. So be a
Wow.
Karen and have a deadbolt and pray for Canada.
3-inch nails, or
3-inch
three
nails.
3-inch screws,
Yeah.
to, and deadbolt, and lighting, right? Automatic, that's so easy to get a hold of these days. The lights that flip on and light up your area, making your place. Nothing stands out when you're driving by and say, "Holy smokes!" Like, that place is pretty fancy, or some stuff that brings attention to it. When you talk about locks, is this what you're talking about? These D-ring shackles or something? I just brought
I
up
don't know what
anti.
that is for.
Okay, I'm trying to bring up. You said something about car locks.
Oh, there's that. Have you ever seen the puck locks on vans and stuff like that? Padlocks. Look up puck lock. We'll come up with it.
No. All right. Okay. So, yeah. Let me bring it up here. So right there.
Yeah, yeah. Because so the locks can actually be punched in. If I stuck a flathead screwdriver in your car door lock, uh, once I push that into the door, if I push your lock into your door, then I can do whatever I want with it. Then I can move it up, I can move it down, I can move it left, I can move it right. Once I push your door lock in, then it's loose in your door. I can wiggle it whichever way I want until that door is open. And those locks will protect. If anybody here's in the trades, or that's about the only way you can lock your car up.
Okay.
And then if you notice, that van's even got metal screens in the windows, which those are great too. So there is no automotive security other than that. I'd say if you're a work guy, get them.
Gotcha. Good. And okay, so if anybody wants to learn more about you or contact you, or they're like, hey, I'm in
I
the
don't. I'm
greater
not here to
Minnesota area.
advertise. No, I'm not here to advertise.
Okay.
I don't know. I thought maybe I'd be able to contribute a few things, although I will say I wish I prepared better, as I could have done a better job if I would have written some things down. I regret that. And if anybody
I
else is ever going to be on your show, if you're thinking about writing it down, I'd recommend it, because I wasn't able to wing it as effectively as I would have liked to.
I
But
think you're being too hard on yourself, my friend.
well, that's one thing that I am all the time. So
I thought the show
that's par for the course for me.
was great. Yeah, I thought we had a terrific discussion. We have definite takeaways from this. So yeah, and no, I appreciate it. So we talked about what did locksmiths do. I mean, I'll tell you, I thought there was some very sophisticated registry in all 50 states, and all of these things, and to know that that's kind of a state by state thing, and actually, like you said, Minnesota, it's not nearly to that degree. The home security tips, we had some really cool stories to go with that, and then yeah, I mean, just advice for people. Hey, spend this $50 on Amazon, keep it in your garage. Down the road, it might save you a couple $100 or more. So yeah, and then even like going in online and looking in my area for locksmiths, I found a couple that are just
Of the scam guys,
of
it's
the scam
crazy. You
guys.
never knew they were there, but they're there the whole time, waiting for you. They were waiting for you.
And you're going to interface with them at like the worst point in your,
Yeah.
not the worst point, but you're going to be stressed out and stuff like that. So
Yeah, and it's not us, because when they come and mess with somebody like you or me, well, we got a chance to stand up for ourselves. But maybe grandma doesn't. Well.
yeah, no, I get what you're saying. So this is from Martin. He's saying, good show, great guest. Thank you, Martin.
Thank you.
So yeah,
That's kind of
absolutely.
you.
And yeah, Heath. And so yeah, I appreciate it, and everybody here. So this is Heath Nightall. Thank you, Josh. Great show as always. So thank you. Yeah. So yeah, this is a wonderful show. I learned a lot from this, and yeah, things. I mean, when you offered to be on the show, I was like, yes. I mean, this is an area I just don't
I thought
know
you'd
much
ask me some
about.
school security questions.
School security question.
Didn't
Well, I
you write
think
a didn't you write a school security book? School of Heirs? Is that about school security, or am I judging the book by the cover?
so. Here's the book, and here's its cover. So, School of Heirs is mostly about the mindset that you can fortify your way to safety. So through bollards and surveillance cameras and bulletproof film stuff. And I argue in the book and say that's not the reality, right? That the best way to prevent is to invest in your identification systems, your threat identification systems. Most kids will tell you if they're going to harm other kids. So what's your system for kids reporting? And if you think you're going to spend your way to safety, you're probably not going to get there.
Yeah, because people are focusing on material items to save the day, and you're
Yeah.
saying, no, you need to be present in the moment and pay attention to the things people are saying
So it was a crazy,
or
I mean,
doing.
so this book is in hundreds of libraries across the world. I think I get notified when it shows up in different places. Brigham Young bought it, Illinois University bought it, Baltimore Public Library bought it last week. But
Yeah, well, I 100% agree that the people are the
yeah,
security and not
they
the
are.
locks. So you're all your own locksmith. I mean, the lock doesn't matter. It's your attitude. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, that's a great way to put it, right? Yeah, because these systems fatigue, the human side of them fatigues. If you're right, not a Karen saying, excuse me, who are you? Why are you here? Please show me some identification, or just wait a second. I need to call back to district office, or I need to call whatever, and And suddenly, right, it's going to unravel pretty fast for somebody, and they're going to exit out of that situation.
You
Or
can
say,
show
oh,
that Casper Carr movie as your training video, because that will literally show people what is, you know, yeah,
oh my
that's a
God,
good training video. If you could stop a guy like Casper Carr, then your security is perfect because that guy's impossible to stop.
yeah, that is amazing. Wow. Oh, okay. So, anything else here before we close, Josh? I want to
I'm surprised we
thank
went
you.
this long, to be honest. I can't believe I talked to you. I can't believe there's enough in there to go. Well, that's great.
There's a lot, and what I'm going to do is, here's the tip of the day from Heath: dip phone books in concrete. I don't know what that means, but what I will do, as always, is tomorrow I will write the blog post for this show, and this will be rendered on audio on Podbean, so it'll be out in leveled audio on Podbean, and then the blog post where we'll have some of these pointers from today will be out. And that will all be out by the end of tomorrow. I'll put that out on Twitter and so forth. But again, Safety PhD, which you see in the corner with my name, is where to find all 170 shows of the Safety Doc dating back 4 years, and then also the blog posts that go with those. So yeah, that'll be out tomorrow, and looking forward to it. If I have power, because this ice storm coming in, we'll see. It's a little iffy. Thankfully, I heat my house with wood, and what if the power goes out, they'll still be warm. But all right. Well, I want to thank you again, Josh. And this is zero tolerance is BS, though. Oh, all right. So yeah. Well, Jim, you got to read my book, because my book, I think, will get into what you're thinking right there, buddy. So thank you so much, Josh, for being on the show. Stay warm in the greater Minnesota area, and keep doing what you're doing. This was a great show. Thank you for giving me your time tonight.
Sure. Thank you. Have a good night.
All right. Thanks, buddy.
Bye now.